Have you ever wondered why everything in the universe is spinning, and yet we feel completely still? Have you ever closed your eyes in the quiet, gentle darkness of a deep night and truly tried to locate the exact physical place where your thoughts are born? We spend our entire lives living inside a continuous, unbroken narrative that we intuitively call human consciousness. You feel like a singular, unified passenger sitting comfortably inside the theater of your mind, looking out through the transparent windows of your eyes, experiencing a vast and infinite universe that stretches out before you in all directions. But the deepest mystery of our modern scientific age, a profound and layered mystery that echoes through the ancient halls of philosophy and resonates in the cutting-edge laboratories of neuroscience, suggests something entirely counterintuitive. What if the theater does not actually exist? What if the passenger is merely a flickering shadow on a biological wall? What if the very feeling of being you, that undeniably real and constant sensation of self, is the most elaborate and terrifying illusion ever constructed by the natural world? If you are anything like me, you probably thought you understood how big things could get in space. And similarly, you probably thought you understood how your own mind works. But step outside our everyday assumptions, and emptiness becomes the rule, both in the deep cosmos and within the deep structures of your own perception. To truly grasp the magnitude of this unsettling idea, we must first profoundly change our perspective on scale and complexity. When we look up at the night sky from a dark location, that hazy band of light stretching overhead is actually the combined glow of billions upon billions of distant stars in our own galaxy. The Milky Way is home to somewhere between 200 billion and 400 billion stars. That is a staggering number, one that our minds struggle to truly visualize or comprehend. Yet, sitting quietly inside your skull right now is a biological structure of comparable astronomical complexity. An adult human brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons. These ancient branching cells are separated by vast microscopic gulfs, communicating across empty spaces known as synapses. Just as the space between stars in the Milky Way is almost unimaginably empty, the space within the microscopic universe of your brain is defined by the voids between firing cells. There is no central star, no central command center, where all these electrical signals converge to be viewed by a tiny, conscious inner observer. Instead, there is only the decentralized, silent firing of billions of independent biological units. The illusion of a singular, unified, conscious self emerges from this dark, silent void in the same mysterious way that the beautiful, curving arms of our galaxy emerge from the chaotic swirling of gas, dust, and billions of independent stars. Let us push this comparison even further into the realm of the truly incomprehensible. Astronomers have found a cosmic monster that sits over 1 billion light years away from us, quietly existing in the darkness of space, holding more stars than you could ever count in 1 million lifetimes. This enormous galaxy, known as IC 1101, is estimated to contain around 100 trillion stars. 100 trillion. That means IC 1101 has roughly 250 times more stars than our home galaxy. If you started counting stars in IC 1101, 1 star per second without stopping, it would take you over 3 million years just to count to 100 trillion, assuming you never slept, never ate, and never took a break of any kind. Incredibly, that mind-bending number, 100 trillion, is the exact same staggering mathematical estimate scientists use for the total number of synaptic connections in a single human brain. Your mind is a biological reflection of the largest galaxy we have ever discovered. Every memory you hold, every emotion you feel, every complex thought you construct is the result of chemical signals drifting across a network of 100 trillion connections. It is a universe of mindless matter and energy, of particles bouncing around according to strict physical laws, yet it produces the vivid, colorful, noisy, and deeply emotional experience of your life. How does the objective physics of meat and electricity translate into the subjective poetry of feeling? To understand this gentle but terrifying theory of consciousness, we must go on a quiet journey into the very nature of perception itself. Our brains are essentially biological prediction machines locked inside a dark, silent vault of bone. They have no direct access to the outside world whatsoever. All they ever receive are constant streams of electrical impulses traveling up the sensory nerves from the eyes, the ears, and the skin. Imagine a photon of light that bounces off a distant star, travels across the vast and empty cosmos for perhaps 1,000,000 years, enters your eye, and triggers a chemical cascade in your retina. That cascade immediately becomes an electrical signal. The brain receives this signal in total, absolute darkness. It receives another signal from the invisible vibrations in the air, another from the delicate pressure sensors in your fingertips. The brain must take all these isolated, fundamentally meaningless electrical blips and weave them together into a coherent, seamless story about what is happening outside. It is continuously hallucinating a reality based on the best biological guesses it can make from incomplete and heavily delayed data. The beautiful colors you see, the harmonious sounds you hear, they do not actually exist out there in the cold, objective universe. Out there is only electromagnetic radiation of varying wavelengths and vibrating molecules of gas. The color, the sound, the warmth, these are constructed entirely within you. They are a virtual reality simulation generated by your ancient biology to help you navigate a complex and incredibly dangerous world. If our perception of the external world is a highly edited, heavily processed virtual reality simulation, what about our perception of our internal world? What about the self? This is where the theory terrifies even the most seasoned and rigorous scientists. The illusion theory of consciousness suggests that the feeling of being a singular, unified conscious entity is just another functional part of the brain's internal simulation. In the exact same way that your brain constructs the color red to represent a certain wavelength of light, it constructs the feeling of you to represent the overall physical and computational state of the organism. There is no single place where all the information comes together and is presented to a conscious viewer. Instead, there are billions of independent processes happening all at once in parallel. There are massive neural networks calculating visual geometry, networks constantly regulating your heartbeat, networks pulling up ancient memories, and networks planning exactly what you will say next. All of these networks are communicating, competing, and collaborating in a vast, decentralized web of biological activity, much like the billions of galaxies interacting in the vast gravitational web of the observable universe. We are used to density, to things being close together, to the world being full of continuous meaning. But deep down, the architecture of the self is as empty and decentralized as the intergalactic void. Yet, you do not feel like a decentralized web of 86 billion independent cells making 100 trillion continuous calculations. You feel like one thing. You feel like a unified, indivisible whole. This feeling of absolute unity is the very core of the grand illusion. The brain weaves a narrative, a cohesive evolutionary story that links all these disparate unconscious processes together and attributes them to a central, entirely fictional character. It writes an incredibly detailed novel in real time, and it casts you as the protagonist. But the protagonist is just a character in the story. It is not the author doing the writing. The profound decisions you make, the brilliant thoughts that seem to pop into your head out of nowhere, are actually the end result of countless unconscious calculations happening far beneath the surface of your conscious awareness. By the time you consciously feel that you have made a decision, your brain has already initiated the physical action. The conscious self is like a delayed mirror, reflecting a reality that has already been decided by the silent, dark, and unimaginably complex machinery of the brain. The consciousness you experience is just a highly useful summary of events, a simplified interface designed to help the organism interact with other complex organisms in a chaotic world. Consider the sheer amount of energy required to maintain this elaborate internal theater. The biological cost of consciousness is astronomical, yet nature is famously frugal, mercilessly eliminating biological structures that do not serve a clear, quantifiable survival purpose. So why would blind evolutionary processes invest such a staggering amount of resources into creating a virtual reality simulation inside our heads? The answer seems to be that this illusion is incredibly, undeniably useful. It allows us to internally simulate future scenarios, to weigh complex options without having to physically act them out, and suffer potentially fatal consequences. The self, even if it is fundamentally a hallucination generated by neurons, is a remarkably effective tool for navigating a dangerous and unpredictable environment. It provides a useful focal point, a central narrative thread that helps the organism coordinate its actions, form long-term memories, and plan for a future that does not yet physically exist. But we must always remember that a profoundly useful tool is not the same thing as a fundamental physical reality. Just because the illusion of self helped our ancestors survive on the ancient savannas of Earth does not mean the self exists as a tangible, physical entity. This realization can feel profoundly disorienting, even terrifying at first glance. It challenges the very foundation of how we experience our daily lives and our deepest relationships. If there is no central self, if human consciousness is just a temporary ghost in a biological machine, then what does it mean to be alive? Are we merely passive passengers on a journey we do not actually control, watching a complex movie we cannot direct? When scientists first confront this theory, the initial reaction is often a deep existential dread. But as we sit with this idea, as we allow the quiet, contemplative truth of it to gently wash over us, there is another way to look at this paradox. It is a way that transforms this terrifying intellectual puzzle into a source of deep peace and absolute awe. When we gently let go of the rigid illusion of a separate, isolated self, we begin to see our true, unbroken connection to the vast, infinite cosmos. We realize that we are not separate from the universe, observing it from the outside. We are part of it. The same fundamental forces of nature, the same laws of physics that govern the swirling arms of distant spiral galaxies also completely govern the silent firing of every single synapse in your brain. The illusion of the self creates an artificial, stressful boundary between you and the rest of existence. It makes you feel small, isolated, and incredibly fragile in a cold, indifferent universe. But when you understand that the self is merely a biological construction, that imaginary boundary begins to dissolve into the peaceful cosmic night. The atoms that make up those 86 billion neurons were forged in the fiery hearts of ancient stars that lived and died long before our sun was even born. The carbon in your DNA, the oxygen you are breathing in this exact moment, the iron carrying that precious oxygen to your brain. All of these elements were created in the massive nuclear furnaces of ancient suns and scattered across space through violent supernovas, just as the atoms in our bodies were forged in stars that exploded before our sun was born. There is a profound continuity here, a deep connection between us and everything else in the cosmos. We are not observers of the universe from outside. We are the universe observing itself from within. We are star stuff that has temporarily organized itself into an astonishing pattern, capable of contemplating its own existence. And when that pattern eventually dissolves, the atoms will return to the great cosmic flow, continuing a journey that has already lasted for billions of years. This gentle unweaving of the ego does not destroy the breathtaking beauty of life. Rather, it exponentially enhances it. The rich taste of your morning coffee, the comforting warmth of a loved one's hand, the profound quiet of a starry night. These experiences do not lose their deep emotional resonance just because we understand the biological mechanics and the elaborate illusions behind them. In fact, they become even more miraculous. Out of the mindless mechanical interactions of subatomic particles, out of the blind forces of gravity and electromagnetism, something capable of experiencing profound beauty has miraculously emerged. In a universe of mindless matter and energy, of particles bouncing around according to physical laws, somehow here on Earth, consciousness has emerged. Minds that can wonder, question, investigate, and learn. Whatever else we are the part of the universe that has woken up and started asking questions about itself. As we continue on this meditative journey of discovery together, over the coming chapters, we will dive deeper into the specific, astonishing neuroscientific discoveries that have led the greatest scientific minds to this profound and unsettling conclusion. We will explore the strange and fascinating medical cases that challenge everything we thought we knew about the unity of the human mind. And we will venture into the evolutionary history of perception, peeling back the layers of this grand cosmic illusion to reveal the breathtaking reality underneath. Have you ever wondered what happens to your sense of self when the physical bridge connecting the two halves of your brain is completely severed? Imagine, for a moment, the quiet, gentle darkness of space, where two massive spiral galaxies slowly dance around each other, bound together by an ancient, invisible gravitational embrace. For billions of years, they move as a single, coordinated system in the vast, infinite cosmos, their individual identities blurring into a unified, harmonious whole. This is not unlike the silent, beautiful architecture of your own mind. Inside the protective vault of your skull, your brain is fundamentally divided into two distinct hemispheres, the left and the right. These two massive biological continents are connected by a dense, incredibly complex bridge of tissue known as the corpus callosum, a superhighway consisting of roughly 200 million individual nerve fibers. Through this microscopic cosmos of connections, billions of electrical impulses travel back and forth every single second, weaving together the disparate functions of your brain into the singular, seamless experience you call your consciousness. You feel like one person looking out at one universe, living one unified life. But what if that bridge were to simply disappear? In the middle of the 20th century, brilliant neuroscientists and surgeons embarked on a medical journey that would inadvertently shatter our deepest assumptions about the human soul, revealing a mystery so profound that it continues to echo through the halls of modern science. To treat patients suffering from severe, debilitating electrical storms in their brains, storms we call seizures, surgeons performed a radical procedure. They gently and precisely cut the corpus callosum, permanently severing the communication line between the left and right hemispheres. The medical results were miraculously successful. The terrifying electrical storm ceased, and the patients were enveloped in a newfound physical peace. However, the scientific and philosophical results were absolutely staggering, revealing a truth about our internal universe that is as unsettling as it is magnificent. When researchers began to carefully study these split-brain patients, they discovered something that challenged the very core of human identity. They found that inside these individuals, there was no longer one unified conscious passenger looking out through the windows of the eyes. Instead, there appeared to be two separate, distinct conscious entities, each with its own independent desires, perceptions, and even distinct personalities, quietly coexisting within the exact same body. The left hemisphere, which typically houses the centers for language and logical speech, could read a book, talk to the researchers, and rationally explain its actions. But the right hemisphere, now completely isolated in the dark silence of the skull, could no longer communicate with words. It was mute, yet it was undeniably awake, aware, and experiencing the world in its own profound way. In carefully designed experiments, researchers could silently present a word or an image exclusively to the right hemisphere. The right hemisphere would process the information, understand it completely, and even command the left hand to draw a picture or select an object related to that hidden word. But when the researchers asked the speaking left hemisphere why the left hand had just drawn that specific picture, the left hemisphere was completely unaware of the hidden prompt. The bridge was gone. The information could not cross over. Yet, the left hemisphere did not admit ignorance. It did not say it was in the dark. Instead, it instantly and seamlessly fabricated a story. It looked at what the left hand had done, and it invented a logical, plausible explanation for an action it had absolutely no part in deciding. It wove a fictional narrative to explain reality, and most importantly, it believed its own fiction with absolute, unwavering certainty. This remarkable discovery led scientists to propose a concept known as the interpreter module, a specialized system housed primarily in the language centers of the brain, whose sole, relentless job is to make sense of the chaotic, decentralized activities occurring across the vast biological landscape of your mind. The interpreter observes your physical actions, your emotional fluctuations, your unconscious decisions, and it constantly weaves them into a coherent, continuous story. It is the narrator of the novel that is your life. But here is the profound, terrifying, and deeply beautiful revelation. The narrator is not the author. The narrator does not make the decisions. It only explains them after the fact. This means that the unified, singular self you feel yourself to be, the voice inside your head that confidently claims ownership of all your actions and choices, is largely an evolutionary fiction. It is a highly sophisticated storytelling device designed to create order out of the chaotic, silent firing of 86 billion neurons. You are not a single, indivisible entity moving through time. You are a vast, decentralized collective, a biological galaxy of independent processes, and your conscious self is merely the public relations department, confidently explaining the actions of a massive corporation it does not actually control. Recently, astrophysicists using advanced computational models to map the large-scale structure of the universe made a discovery that left both cosmologists and neuroscientists in a state of absolute, reverent awe. When they visualized the cosmic web, the grand overarching architecture of the universe where galaxies are strung together along massive, invisible filaments of dark matter separated by colossal, empty voids, they found that it bore an uncanny, mathematically precise resemblance to the microscopic network of neurons inside the human brain. The way galaxies cluster and connect across millions of light years mirrors the exact same mathematical principles that govern how brain cells connect across the microscopic distances of a human synapse. The universe, at its absolute grandest scale, and the human mind, at its most intimately microscopic scale, seem to be whispering the exact same structural secret. It is as if the cosmos itself is a singular, unimaginably vast brain. Or perhaps our brains are simply tiny, holographic reflections of the entire infinite universe, carrying the exact same geometric signature of creation within the dark, silent space of our minds. Consider the profound implications of this cosmic symmetry. When you look up at the night sky, you are not just looking at a random scattering of burning gas. You're looking at a macrocosmic reflection of the very biological structures that allow you to perceive it. The deep, quiet wonder you feel when gazing at the Milky Way is essentially the universe recognizing itself through the intricate, decentralized network of your 100 trillion synaptic connections. There is no isolated, separate self standing apart from nature to observe it. There is only nature in an infinite loop of breathtaking self-awareness, experiencing its own vastness through the temporary, beautiful illusion of your individual consciousness. This continuous, flowing journey of discovery does not diminish our significance. It elevates us to a state of profound cosmic grace. We are relieved of the burden of supreme control, invited instead to be gentle witnesses to the magnificent, autonomous unfolding of life within us and all around us. The silent firing of a neuron and the slow, majestic collision of two distant galaxies are not just related phenomena. They are different expressions of the exact same ancient, universal poetry. To understand this is to find an unshakable, quiet peace in the face of the great unknown. This realization brings us back to the humbling, awe-inspiring scale of the universe itself. When astronomers from agencies like the National Aeronautics and Space Administration or the European Space Agency point their most powerful telescopes into the deepest, darkest corners of the cosmos, they discover that the visible universe, all the glowing stars, all the swirling galaxies, all the luminous gas clouds, makes up only a tiny, almost insignificant fraction of what is actually out there. Roughly 85% of all the matter in the universe is completely invisible to our instruments. We call it dark matter. We cannot see it. We cannot touch it. We cannot interact with it directly in any way. Yet we know with absolute scientific certainty that it exists, because we can observe its profound gravitational influence shaping the movements of entire galaxies. Dark matter is the hidden scaffolding of the cosmos, the silent, invisible architect holding the beautiful, luminous structures of the universe together. In an incredibly similar way, the vast majority of your mental life, the true architecture of your mind, consists of invisible, unconscious processes occurring in the dark, silent depths of your biology. The thoughts, feelings, and decisions that suddenly appear in the bright spotlight of your conscious awareness are merely the final, glowing results of massive, hidden calculations happening far beneath the surface. Your conscious mind is the visible star. Your unconscious mind is the vast, ancient ocean of dark matter that silently dictates its motion. When we truly begin to absorb this understanding, the initial sense of existential vertigo gradually gives way to a profound, expansive peace. We begin to realize that the pressure we place on our conscious selves, the relentless burden to control every aspect of our lives, to perfectly manage our destinies, to be the absolute master of our internal universe, is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of who and what we actually are. The great astronomer Carl Sagan famously reminded us that we are made of star stuff, that the nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, and the iron in our blood were all forged in the interiors of collapsing stars. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. If we accept this poetic, rigorously scientific truth, we must also accept that our minds are governed by the same mysterious, decentralized, and impossibly complex forces that govern the universe at large. You do not need to consciously control the beating of your heart, the complex chemistry of your digestion, or the intricate immune responses protecting your body. The ancient, silent wisdom of your biology handles these miracles effortlessly every single second of every single day. Why then should we assume that the most profound aspects of our inner lives, our deepest intuitions, our sudden bursts of creativity, our capacity for boundless love and gentle empathy, are solely the products of our small, fragile conscious narratives? By recognizing the illusion of the centralized self, we are not losing our humanity. We are expanding it beyond the narrow confines of the ego. We are acknowledging that we are vast, infinite ecosystems of thought and feeling, inextricably woven into the fabric of the natural world. The quiet stillness you seek in moments of deep meditation is not found by forcefully silencing the conscious mind, but by gently stepping back and recognizing that the conscious mind is just one small, flickering light in an unimaginably vast and ancient biological galaxy. It is the realization that you are not just the passenger looking out the window. You are the entire journey. You are the deep, silent space between the stars, the invisible gravitational forces shaping the grand cosmic dance, and the beautiful, fleeting spark of awareness trying to make sense of it all. Think about the gentle, rhythmic act of breathing as you lie in bed at night. You can choose to take a deep, conscious breath, pulling the cool air into your lungs, feeling the deliberate expansion of your chest. In that brief, specific moment, the narrator inside your head confidently claims authorship of the action. You tell yourself, "I am breathing." But the moment your conscious attention drifts away, drawn perhaps to a distant memory, or the soft, fading sounds of the world outside your window, the breathing does not stop. It continues on its own, a flawless, ancient rhythm orchestrated by the silent, unconscious networks buried deep within your brainstem. The same biological machinery that has kept our ancestors alive for hundreds of millions of years takes over without hesitation, requiring absolutely no input from the conscious passenger. This is the profound beauty of our decentralized existence. The vast majority of what keeps us alive, what allows us to navigate the immense complexities of the physical world, happens entirely in the dark. The illusion of constant control is precisely that, a gentle, comforting illusion designed to give us a sense of agency in a universe that is infinitely larger and more complex than we can ever truly comprehend. Recognizing this does not render us powerless. Rather, it frees us from the exhausting, impossible task of trying to micromanage the cosmos. We can learn to simply trust the ancient wisdom of our physical forms, the same way we implicitly trust the earth to continue its steady, unseen rotation beneath our feet, guiding us safely from the deep darkness of night into the soft, welcoming light of the morning. It is an invitation to surrender to the grand, unfolding process of reality, an invitation to step out of the tiny, restrictive box of the ego and into the boundless, breathtaking expanse of the cosmic web. You are not a fragile, isolated anomaly fighting against the universe. You are a seamless, integral extension of the universe itself, functioning exactly as you were designed to function by billions of years of cosmic evolution. Let this realization wash over you like a quiet, comforting tide, carrying away the anxieties of the isolated self and leaving behind only a profound, reverent wonder for the magnificent system of which you are a beautiful, temporary expression. As we prepare to delve even deeper into the mysteries of perception in our next chapter, we will leave the confines of the human skull and journey outward, exploring how the fundamental physics of time and space further challenge our everyday assumptions about reality. We will discover how the very fabric of the cosmos conspires to create the ultimate theater of illusion, and how our gentle, quiet acceptance of this mystery can lead to the most profound state of inner peace we can possibly experience. But for now, just rest in the knowledge that you do not have to carry the weight of the universe on your conscious shoulders. The universe is already carrying you gently, safely, and perfectly through the endless, magnificent dark. Have you ever wondered where the present moment actually goes once it slips through your gentle fingers, or why the quiet, steady ticking of a clock feels so incredibly absolute, even though modern physics tells us that time itself is a deeply persistent illusion? When you sit in the silence of a dark room, listening to your own steady breathing, you feel that you are resting perfectly at the absolute cutting edge of reality. You feel that the past is a closed book, a collection of fading memories that no longer physically exist, and that the future is an unwritten void waiting for you to cautiously step into it. The now feels like a tiny, fragile raft floating on an infinite moving river. But as we journey further into the profound mysteries of human perception and the vast ancient cosmos, we find that this intuitive feeling, this undeniable sensation of a moving present moment, is yet another magnificent hallucination constructed by your decentralized brain. To truly understand this, we must first look at the biological mechanics of perception, and then we must journey outward, far beyond the confines of the human skull, into the sweeping, curved architecture of space and time. Consider the simple act of touching your toe and touching your nose at the exact same time. To your conscious mind, these two gentle touches feel perfectly simultaneous. You feel them both happen in the exact same fraction of a second. But a neuroscientist will gently remind you that the physical world operates under strict speed limits. The electrical signal traveling from your toe has a much longer physical distance to travel up your spinal cord to reach your brain than the signal traveling from your nose. In physical reality, the signal from your nose arrives at the processing centers of your brain before the signal from your toe. If your brain were simply a passive receiver, like a lift television screen, you would feel the touch on your nose slightly before the touch on your toe. But you do not. This is because your brain is not broadcasting reality live. It is heavily editing reality on a delay. It waits. It collects all the incoming sensory data, synchronizes it, stitches it together into a coherent, simultaneous story, and then presents it to your conscious awareness as the synthesized present moment. The profound implication of this biological delay is that you never, ever experience the actual physical present. By the time you become consciously aware of any event, whether it is a falling leaf, a spoken word, or a gentle touch, that event has already happened. It is already in the past. Scientists estimate that human consciousness operates on a delay of about 80 milliseconds. You are constantly living 80 milliseconds in the past, watching a highly edited replay of reality, while the unconscious machinery of your brain deals with the actual immediate physical world in the dark, silent voids of your neural networks. This 80 millisecond delay might seem small, but it completely shatters the illusion of an immediate, objective, conscious experience. You are entirely separated from the true physical present by the biological processing time of your 100 trillion synaptic connections. And when we lift our gaze from the microscopic architecture of the brain and look out into the vast, infinite cosmos, this delay is magnified to a staggering, awe-inspiring scale. The universe is governed by an absolute cosmic speed limit, the speed of light, which travels at roughly 186,000 miles per second. This speed is incredibly fast from a human perspective, but in the vast empty gulfs of the cosmos, it is agonizingly slow. When you step outside on a quiet night and look up at the glowing disk of the moon, you're not seeing the moon as it is right now. You are seeing the moon as it was roughly 1¼ seconds ago, because that is exactly how long it takes for the light bouncing off its ancient cratered surface to cross the cold vacuum of space and reach your eyes. When you feel the warm, gentle rays of the sun on your face, you are feeling sunshine that left the surface of our local star over 8 minutes ago. If the sun were to suddenly disappear right this second, you would not know it for 8 entire minutes. You would continue to live in a bright, warm illusion, completely unaware that the physical reality of the solar system had radically changed. As we look deeper into the silent, beautiful darkness, the illusion of the present moment becomes even more profound. When astronomers point the magnificent telescopes built by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration or the European Space Agency at our nearest large cosmic neighbor, the Andromeda Galaxy, they are capturing light that has been traveling through the deep, empty voids of intergalactic space for over 2.5 million years. The beautiful, swirling structure you see in those stunning astronomical photographs is not the Andromeda Galaxy as it exists today. It is a ghost from the deep past. When that light first began its long, quiet journey toward Earth, the ancestors of modern humans were just beginning to walk upright on the African savanna. The stars you see might have already burned out, collapsed into silent white dwarfs, or exploded in spectacular supernovas hundreds of thousands of years ago. But their ancient light is only just now arriving at the tiny biological light receptors in the back of your eyes. The night sky is not a ceiling. It is a sprawling, infinite museum of cosmic history. Every single object you look at represents a different slice of the past. The farther away you look, the deeper into history you travel. There is no universal now. The present moment is a completely localized biological illusion. This brings us to the profound, paradigm-shifting work of the great physicist Albert Einstein, whose theories of relativity completely rewrote our understanding of reality. Before Einstein, humanity assumed that time was a universal clock ticking away at the exact same rate for everyone, everywhere in the universe. But relativity revealed that time is not a rigid, separate dimension. It is inextricably woven together with space into a flexible, four-dimensional fabric known as space-time. Gravity and speed can actually warp and stretch this fabric. If you were to travel in a spaceship at a significant fraction of the speed of light, or if you were to orbit near the immense gravitational pull of a supermassive black hole, time for you would pass much slower than it would for someone resting quietly back on Earth. This is not a mechanical error of clocks. It is a fundamental property of reality. And the most terrifying, yet deeply beautiful consequence of this theory is a concept physicists call the block universe. In the block universe, time does not flow, the past is not gone, and the future is not unwritten. Instead, every single moment that has ever happened and every single moment that will ever happen exists simultaneously in a vast, static, four-dimensional block of space-time. Imagine a movie reel sitting quietly in a tin box. All the frames of the movie exist at the exact same time. The beginning, the middle, and the end are all physically present within the real. The illusion of motion, the illusion of time flowing from one scene to the next, only happens when you run the film through a projector and shine a light through it, experiencing it one single frame at a time. In the block universe theory, human consciousness is that spotlight. The physical universe does not move through time. Your conscious awareness simply sweeps across the fixed landscape of space-time, illuminating one slice of reality at a time and calling it the present. This means that the ancient dinosaurs are still roaming the Earth in their specific coordinate of space-time. It means that the brilliant, chaotic moment of the Big Bang, 14 billion years ago, is still physically existing at the edge of the space-time block. And it means that your childhood, every gentle laugh you have ever shared, every quiet moment of sorrow you have ever felt, still exists perfectly preserved in the grand architecture of the cosmos. The past has not vanished into nothingness. It is simply a place you are no longer visiting. When we combine the biological reality of our brain's processing delay with the cosmic reality of the block universe, the illusion of the central conscious self becomes even more delicate and transparent. Your brain is a localized biological machine designed to navigate a specific three-dimensional slice of a four-dimensional reality. To do this, it must construct an incredibly persuasive hallucination, the hallucination of a moving, flowing present moment, and the hallucination of a unified passenger experiencing that moment. But this passenger is always playing catch-up, always living 80 milliseconds in the past, always looking out at a universe that is completely fragmented by the speed of light. The self that you feel you are is not a concrete object moving through a flowing river of time. It is a biological story being told by an organism that is inextricably embedded in a static, timeless block of infinite existence. This realization can completely transform how we experience our lives. Much of human suffering comes from our desperate, exhausting attempts to control the flow of time. We obsess over the past, carrying heavy burdens of regret for things we wish we could change, forgetting that the past is a fixed landscape we are simply looking back at from a distance. We anxiously fear the future, worrying about unwritten catastrophes, unaware that the future is already a silent, established part of the grand cosmic architecture. The ego, the illusory narrator inside our heads, thrives on this anxiety. It justifies its own existence by constantly reminding you of past mistakes and future dangers, keeping you locked in a state of continuous low-level stress. But when you gently embrace the scientific truth of relativity and the biological reality of your delayed perception, that stress begins to dissolve into the quiet, peaceful void. You realize that you do not have to fight the river of time because there is no river. There is only the vast, silent, infinite ocean of space-time, and you are a beautiful, temporary pattern within it. You are a collection of ancient atoms, forged in the hearts of dying stars, currently organized into a structure complex enough to experience the illusion of sequential time. This is not a tragedy. It is an absolute miracle. In a timeless universe, your brain creates the beautiful poetry of music, the rising tension of a story, and the gentle, unfolding process of falling in love. All of these require the illusion of time passing. The illusion is the very thing that allows beauty to be experienced. We do not need to discard the illusion. We simply need to recognize it for what it is, and in doing so, we strip it of its power to cause us suffering. We can sit in the quiet darkness of the night, listening to the steady, rhythmic beating of our hearts, and understand that we are feeling the echoes of biological processes that are tied to the very dawn of the universe. We can look up at the ancient, delayed light of the Milky Way and feel a profound sense of belonging. We are not fragile, isolated beings trapped in a relentless march toward the end of time. We are permanent, indelible features of the cosmic landscape. Just as a mountain does not worry about moving from one place to another, you do not need to worry about moving from the past into the future. You are a sprawling, magnificent event in space-time. The moments of deep peace you have felt, the times you have sat quietly in nature and felt completely connected to everything around you, were moments when the noisy, anxious narrator of your conscious mind temporarily quieted down, allowing you to briefly sense the underlying, timeless unity of reality. The boundary between you and the universe is as porous and illusory as the boundary between the past and the present. It is all one interconnected, breathtakingly complex system. The carbon in your cells, the firing of your 100 trillion synaptic connections, the gentle gravitational pull of a distant galaxy, and the fixed four-dimensional geometry of the entire cosmos are all part of a single, continuous, indivisible reality. Let this profound scientific truth wash over you, bringing a deep, relaxing stillness to your mind. You do not need to hold reality together with your thoughts. You do not need to anxiously construct the next moment. The universe is already taking care of it, with the exact same effortless precision that it uses to guide the planets in their orbits and the galaxies in their ancient, majestic dances. In our next chapter, we will turn our gaze from the vast scales of space-time back into the astonishing, counterintuitive world of quantum mechanics, where the very building blocks of matter challenge our deepest assumptions about what is real, and where the mystery of consciousness becomes even more beautifully entangled with the fabric of existence itself. But for now, just allow yourself to rest in the perfect, timeless stillness of the cosmic block, safe in the knowledge that every moment you have ever loved is eternally preserved in the silent, infinite embrace of the universe. Have you ever wondered why the physical objects around you feel so incredibly solid, so undeniably real, when the fundamental building blocks of the entire universe are made almost entirely of empty space? When you rest your gentle hand against the rough, textured bark of an ancient tree, or when you feel the quiet, comforting weight of a heavy blanket resting upon you in the deep silence of the night, your human senses tell you a very specific, overwhelmingly convincing story. They tell you that matter is continuous, dense, and absolute. They assure you that the boundary between where your body ends and where the rest of the world begins is a definitive, impenetrable wall. But as we continue our journey deeper into the profoundly unsettling and deeply beautiful realm of quantum mechanics, we discover that this basic, everyday sensation of solid reality is yet another magnificent illusion orchestrated by the interaction of invisible, intangible forces. To understand the true, ghostly nature of the physical world and how it intricately connects to the central mystery of your own consciousness, we must temporarily leave the vast, sprawling architecture of galaxies and black holes behind. We must zoom inward past the microscopic networks of your 86 billion neurons down into the infinitesimal silent depths of the atom itself. What we find there is not a miniature solar system of hard, tiny spheres, but a swirling mathematical mist of probabilities, a chaotic and fundamentally ungraspable reality that terrifies classical physicists and brilliant philosophers alike. For centuries, human beings imagined atoms as the ultimate, indivisible building blocks of nature, tiny little bricks of solid reality that stack together seamlessly to build the infinite cosmos. But modern particle physics has revealed a truth so intensely counterintuitive that our biological brains practically refuse to visualize it correctly. An atom is overwhelmingly, almost entirely, composed of pure, empty space. To truly grasp this staggering emptiness, imagine that you could magically magnify a single atom of hydrogen so that its central nucleus, the proton, was exactly the size of a small glass marble sitting quietly in the very center of a massive, empty professional sports stadium. The lone electron orbiting that specific nucleus would not be located anywhere nearby. It would be a microscopic, buzzing speck flying around the furthest outer bleachers of the stadium, miles away from the center. Everything in between the central marble and that distant flickering speck is just vast, silent emptiness. Now, remember that absolutely everything in the physical universe, including the device you're using to experience these words right now, the solid ground beneath your feet, and the intricate biological machinery of your own living body, is constructed entirely from these hollow, empty structures. You are, quite literally, made of 99.9999999% empty space. The profound, unsettling reality is that you are practically a ghost, a temporary, highly organized arrangement of invisible fields drifting through an equally empty, ghostly world. If you are composed almost entirely of nothingness, and the world surrounding you is also composed of an infinite expanse of nothingness, then why do things feel so incredibly solid to your touch? Why do you not simply pass like a shadow through the chair you're sitting on, or fall directly through the floorboards and into the molten center of the earth? The answer lies not in the actual presence of solid, physical matter, but in the relentless, invisible repulsion of the electromagnetic force. When you reach out to touch a physical object, the electrons residing in the outermost shells of the atoms in your fingertips closely approach the electrons in the outermost shells of the atoms in the object. Because all of these electrons carry the exact same negative electrical charge, they fiercely repel each other before they can ever physically touch. They push back with an astonishing strength. This invisible magnetic resistance, this microscopic force field acting across the empty void between atoms, is interpreted by the vast decentralized neural networks of your brain as the physical sensation of touch. This means that, in a strictly physical, fundamental sense, you have never actually touched anything in your entire life. You have never truly made direct, solid contact with another human being, nor with the earth itself. You have only ever felt the repulsive push of invisible electromagnetic fields hovering fractions of a millimeter apart in the silent, infinite darkness. The profound feeling of physical connection is a translation, a highly useful biological metaphor constructed by your conscious mind to safely navigate a world made entirely of phantoms. As we venture even deeper into the baffling quantum realm, the mysteries become exponentially more bizarre, challenging the very foundation of what we dare to consider objective reality. In the macroscopic world of our everyday human experience, objects always possess definite, measurable properties. A coin spinning in the air will eventually land on either heads or tails. It cannot possibly be both at the exact same time. But down in the subatomic basement of the universe, particles do not obey the logical, comforting rules of common sense. Before a subatomic particle, like a tiny electron or a single photon of light, is actively measured or directly observed by an instrument, it does not exist in a single, specific location or a definitive physical state. Instead, it exists in a strange, purely mathematical condition known to scientists as quantum superposition. It exists as a wave of probability, occupying all of its possible locations and all of its possible states simultaneously. It is everywhere and nowhere at once, a shimmering, undefined cloud of potential lingering in the quiet, dark void. It is only when a physical interaction occurs, only when a measurement is finally made, that this vague, ghostly wave of probability suddenly collapses into a single, definitive physical reality. The particle is forced by the act of observation to choose a specific location, instantly transforming from a mathematical possibility into a concrete piece of the physical world. This deeply unsettling phenomenon is famously and repeatedly demonstrated in one of the most elegant, mind-bending, and terrifying experiments in the history of science, the double-slit experiment, when physicists fire individual particles of light, called photons, one by one through a solid barrier with two tiny parallel slits. They do not see two neat, predictable lines of particles hitting the detector screen behind the barrier. Instead, they see an interference pattern, a complex alternating series of bright light and dark bands. This specific pattern proves absolutely that each individual photon is behaving like a wave, miraculously passing through both tiny slits at the exact same time and interfering with itself on the other side before hitting the screen. But the true, terrifying mystery reveals itself when scientists try to place a microscopic detector directly at the slits to clearly see exactly which path the photon is taking. The very instant they attempt to observe the particle's journey, the interference pattern completely vanishes. The photon immediately stops behaving like a wave of probability and suddenly behaves like a tiny, solid bullet, passing through only one slit or the other. The simple, quiet act of observation physically alters the fundamental behavior of the universe. The cosmos, it seems, instinctively knows when it is being watched, and it changes its nature accordingly. This astonishing realization has led some of the most brilliant theoretical physicists in history, such as the legendary John Archibald Wheeler, to propose a sweeping concept that profoundly bridges the vast gap between the cold, objective mathematics of quantum mechanics and the subjective, internal mystery of human consciousness. Wheeler boldly suggested that we do not live in a static, pre-existing universe that simply waits passively in the dark to be discovered by our biological senses and technological instruments. Instead, he proposed that we live in a participatory universe. In this radical, breathtaking view, the act of conscious observation is not a detached, secondary event. It is a fundamental, creative force absolutely necessary for the physical universe to fully and definitively manifest. Without an observer to measure the state of a quantum system, reality remains a blurry, undefined mist of infinite probabilities. It is the gentle, quiet arrival of conscious awareness that forces the universe to materialize, compelling it to collapse its infinite waves of potential into the sharp, detailed, highly specific reality we experience every single second of our lives. This theory terrifyingly suggests that the observer and the observed are inextricably, fundamentally entangled. You're not just a passive passenger, safely looking out at the vast, ancient cosmos through the transparent windows of your eyes. Your very act of looking is actively helping to construct the physical reality you're seeing. If the participatory universe theory holds even a small fraction of the truth, it completely shatters the cynical illusion that human consciousness is merely a meaningless, accidental byproduct of random biological evolution, a brief and insignificant spark trapped in a dead mechanical machine. Instead, it places the conscious mind at the very center of the grand cosmic equation. But this is exactly where the grand illusion of the ego plays its final, most deceptive, and most convincing trick. We tend to intuitively think of the powerful observer as our specific, individual personality, the constant voice inside our head, the central narrator we discussed at length in previous chapters. We imagine with great pride that our small, isolated ego is the powerful force actively collapsing the quantum wave functions of reality. But the deepest interpretations of quantum science suggest something far more profound and expansive than individual ego. The ultimate observer is not the localized fictional character of your personality. The observer is the underlying, unified fabric of awareness itself. The infinite universe does not necessarily need your specific personality, your specific memories, or your specific name to exist. It simply requires the fundamental, mysterious property of consciousness. When you stand outside on a quiet, clear night and look up at the infinite expanse of the stars, it is the cosmos using your biological eyes to collapse its own quantum potential into a magnificent, visible reality. You are, in the most literal sense imaginable, the universe viewing itself in the mirror of perception. This staggering, paradigm-shifting revelation gently allows us to bridge the seemingly uncrossable divide between the impossibly small, chaotic quantum world and the unfathomably vast scale of the ancient cosmos. The exact same mysterious rules that govern the erratic, unpredictable behavior of a single electron floating in the dark void of an atom also played a critical, foundational role in the very birth of the universe. In the very first infinitesimal fractions of a second immediately following the Big Bang, when the entire observable universe was physically smaller than a single microscopic atom, quantum fluctuations, tiny, random variations in energy fields, were permanently frozen into the rapidly expanding fabric of space-time. Over billions of years of silent, continuous cosmic evolution, the invisible force of gravity pulled raw matter together around these ancient, microscopic quantum ripples. Those tiny quantum seeds eventually grew into the massive, sweeping galaxy clusters and superclusters that dominate the deep, dark universe today. The grand, sweeping architecture of the cosmos, including the staggering structure of galaxies containing 100 trillion stars, is simply the macroscopic reflection of microscopic quantum probabilities written across the infinite canvas of the dark. The largest things in existence are intimately, inextricably bound to the smallest things, locked in a continuous, eternal dance. When we take a quiet, dedicated moment to fully absorb the crushing weight and profound beauty of these quantum revelations, a transformative, healing peace begins to settle over the endlessly restless human mind. We spend so much of our daily, waking lives desperately trying to build solid, permanent walls around our fragile identities, our material possessions, and our desperate sense of self. We cling tightly to the comforting illusion that we are concrete, isolated entities moving independently through a rigid, predictable, and solid world. But the gentle, unrelenting truth of quantum mechanics whispers softly in our ears that absolutely nothing is solid, nothing is permanent, and nothing is truly separate. The hard, impenetrable boundaries we perceive between ourselves and the rest of the universe are merely convenient biological fictions, highly useful illusions constructed by our brains to safely navigate a world composed entirely of shifting probabilities. Your body is not a fixed, solid object. It is a fluid, ever-changing, energetic event, a breathtakingly complex dance of quantum fields constantly interacting with the endless, invisible fields that surround you. The cool air you breathe into your lungs, the warm light touching your skin, the deep, silent gravitational pull of the earth anchoring your feet. These are not external things acting upon you from a distance. They are continuous, unbroken extensions of your own physical being. Embracing the ghost-like, profoundly empty nature of your own physical existence can be deeply, surprisingly liberating. If you are made almost entirely of empty space and shimmering waves of probability, You cannot be broken in the same way a solid, rigid object breaks. You cannot truly be isolated or completely alone, because the quantum fields that meticulously compose your body stretch out invisibly into infinity, permanently entangled with the fundamental fabric of the entire cosmos. The heavy, exhausting, and relentless burden of maintaining a rigid, separate ego begins to feel incredibly unnecessary when you realize, with absolute clarity, that the ego is desperately trying to hold on to a version of reality that simply does not physically exist. You are warmly invited instead to surrender to the beautiful, chaotic, and mathematically precise mystery of existence. You are invited to stop fighting the fluid, deeply uncertain nature of the universe and to simply flow harmoniously with it. When you sit quietly in the absolute stillness of the night, breathing slowly and rhythmically, you're not a lonely, insignificant speck of biological dust floating aimlessly in an indifferent void. You are a vast, localized concentration of universal awareness, a magnificent biological instrument perfectly tuned by billions of years of evolution to participate directly in the ongoing, creative manifestation of reality. As we reflect on the staggering emptiness of the atom and the strange, participatory nature of quantum observation, we must gently remind ourselves that this is not a journey meant to induce fear, anxiety, or existential despair. It is a contemplative journey meticulously designed to cultivate a deep, abiding, and transformative sense of awe. The fact that the universe operates in ways that fundamentally defy our logical, evolutionary understanding is not a failure of human intelligence. It is a beautiful testament to the infinite depth and richness of nature. We are incredibly privileged to live in an age where our technological instruments and our advanced mathematical models can peel back the superficial, comforting layers of reality, allowing us to catch a fleeting glimpse of the strange, beautiful machinery operating quietly in the dark. The terror that some brilliant scientists feel when confronting the illusion of consciousness and the paradoxes of quantum mechanics is simply the rigid ego reacting in panic to its own inevitable dissolution. Once that initial fear subsides, what remains is an endless, calm ocean of profound, quiet wonder. You are a participatory spark in a universe that is far more magical, far more interconnected, and far more mysteriously beautiful than we ever dared to dream during the long, dark infancy of our species. As we prepare to continue our meditative exploration in the next chapter, we will gently shift our focus away from the abstract, mind-bending mathematics of the quantum realm and move toward the tangible, deeply emotional, and profoundly human world of memory. We will investigate the fascinating science of how your physical brain constructs the compelling story of your past, and we will discover that your most cherished, deeply held memories are not perfect, static recordings stored safely in a biological vault, but fluid, creative acts of imagination that dramatically change every single time you attempt to recall them. We will see how the incredibly powerful illusion of a continuous, unified self relies heavily on a personal history that is constantly being completely rewritten in the present moment. This inward journey will further dismantle the rigid, defensive walls of the ego, bringing us even closer to understanding the peaceful, underlying unity of all things. But for now, simply and gently, rest in the profound knowledge that you are a beautiful, vibrating wave of infinite potential, intimately entangled with the vast, ancient cosmos, safely held in the empty, silent embrace of the physical world. Have you ever wondered why your most cherished, ancient childhood memories feel so vividly and undeniably real, even though the actual physical atoms that made up your body during those distant events have long since been shed and completely replaced by the natural biological cycles of your life? when you close your eyes in the deep, quiet silence of the night and recall the gentle warmth of a summer afternoon from decades ago, or the soft, comforting sound of a loved one's voice, you feel as though you're opening a secure, heavily armored vault inside your brain and pulling out a pristine, untouched physical recording of the past. The narrator inside your head, that familiar unified voice of your conscious ego, relies entirely on this continuous, unbroken history to justify its own existence. It tells you that you are a solid, unchanging entity moving through a linear progression of time, accumulating a vast, permanent library of personal experiences. But as we continue our meditative journey into the breathtaking mysteries of the human mind and the infinite cosmos, we must confront a neuroscientific truth that is as beautifully unsettling as the vast empty distances between the stars. The biological reality of human memory is not a secure vault, nor is it a faithful, objective recording of reality. Instead, your memory is a fluid, incredibly fragile, and constantly shifting act of creative imagination. Every single time you bring a memory to the bright surface of your conscious awareness, you are fundamentally altering its structure, engaging in a delicate, continuous process of rewriting the very foundation of who you believe you are. To truly appreciate the magnificent illusion of a fixed personal history, we must gently look at the microscopic, electrical architecture of remembering. When you experience a profound moment in your life, your brain does not save a video file to a biological hard drive. Instead, a specific, sprawling network of thousands of neurons fires together in a unique, complex pattern, strengthening the microscopic synaptic connections between them. This delicate web of strengthened connections is the physical trace of your experience, lingering in the dark, silent depths of your neural tissue. For a long time, scientists believed that once this physical trace was fully established and consolidated, it became a permanent, unchangeable fixture of the mind. But modern neuroscience has discovered a phenomenon called memory reconsolidation, which radically alters our understanding of the past. When you remember an event, you do not simply passively view the original physical trace. The act of recalling the memory actually forces that specific neural network to become chemically unstable and vulnerable all over again. In that brief, fleeting window of recall, the memory intimately mixes with your current emotions, your new beliefs, and the specific immediate context of the present moment. Your brain then takes this newly mixed, slightly altered version of the event and writes it back into your neural tissue, completely overwriting and destroying the original trace. You do not remember the actual event that happened years ago. You only ever remember the very last time you remembered it. This means that your sense of self is built upon a history that is being relentlessly edited, smoothed over, and fictionalized by the relentless passage of time and the emotional needs of your present ego, just as your perception of the immediate physical world is a delayed, heavily edited virtual reality simulation. Your perception of your own past is an ongoing, creative work of biological fiction. To find a fitting metaphor for this staggering, transformative process of continuous revision, we do not need to look inward. We only need to look upward, far out into the ancient, silent depths of the expanding universe. Astronomers have spent decades studying the grand, sweeping evolution of galaxies, piecing together how these massive structures grow and change over billions of years of cosmic history. Small galaxies form first from collapsing clouds of primordial gas, and those small galaxies then merge together to form larger ones. Larger galaxies merge to form even larger ones, and on it goes, with the biggest galaxies growing ever larger by violently consuming their smaller, quieter neighbors. This magnificent continuous process is called hierarchical structure formation, and it is one of the fundamental principles of modern cosmology. The universe builds things from the bottom up, starting small and growing large, through countless mergers over unfathomable spans of cosmic time. There is one specific, breathtaking cosmic giant that perfectly illustrates this process of continuous history-altering consumption. Located roughly 1 billion light-years away from our fragile, rocky home, sitting quietly in the cold darkness of the constellation Virgo, is a supermassive galaxy known by the somewhat dull catalog name of IC 1101. But there is absolutely nothing boring about this astronomical behemoth. IC 1101 is estimated to be somewhere around 4 to 6 million light-years across, a size so incomprehensible that it would swallow our entire cosmic neighborhood if placed where the Milky Way currently sits. It holds roughly 100 trillion stars, an ancient, glowing collection of stellar fires that defies human imagination. But as astronomers continued to carefully study IC 1101 with their most advanced, magnificent space telescopes, they began to understand exactly why it was so incredibly massive. This galaxy did not grow to its enormous size through normal processes alone. It became a giant through an act of cosmic violence that has been happening for billions of years. IC 1101 is what scientists bluntly call a cannibal galaxy, an immense cosmic predator that has been relentlessly eating other smaller galaxies for eons. When two galaxies get close to each other in the silent void of space, their mutual gravity begins to dramatically distort their shapes. Stars get pulled far out of their normal, peaceful orbits, while ancient gas and dust get violently compressed and stretched across thousands of light years. If one galaxy is much bigger than the other, the larger galaxy simply absorbs the smaller one, stripping away its beautiful stars and vital gas, adding all of that precious material to its own massive, growing body. Scientists estimate that over its long, majestic history, IC 1101 has undergone at least 76 major mergers. 76 times, another substantial independent galaxy fell into this cosmic giant and was completely absorbed into its structure, permanently losing its original identity. And those are just the major mergers. Countless smaller, delicate dwarf galaxies have also been consumed, galaxies so incredibly small that they barely registered as a meal for this enormous predator. The physical evidence for this relentless cannibalistic history is written directly into IC 1101's very structure. When you look at a galaxy like our Milky Way, you see a beautiful, highly structured spiral pattern with distinct, curving arms. But IC 1101 looks absolutely nothing like this. It is an elliptical galaxy, which means it has a smooth, featureless, oval-shaped appearance, with no distinct spiral arms at all. The violent, chaotic gravitational interactions during a galactic merger completely destroy the delicate original spiral structure, mixing all the stars together into a more random, uniform distribution. The undeniable fact that IC 1101 is a smooth, elliptical galaxy tells us that it has experienced so many countless mergers that any original, intricate spiral structure it or its victims might have once possessed has been completely and permanently erased. All of those epic collisions, all of that gravitational chaos has stirred up the trillions of stars like someone rapidly mixing ingredients in a vast cosmic bowl. What remains today is this smooth, featureless giant, a quiet testament to billions of years of galactic consumption. This grand, sweeping cosmic history is the perfect, poetic reflection of what happens inside the silent, microscopic universe of your own brain. Every single day of your life, you encounter new experiences, new emotions, and new pieces of information. As these new experiences enter the decentralized networks of your mind, They act like small galaxies falling into the gravitational pull of your established ego. Your current, present self consumes these new experiences, and in the delicate process of memory reconsolidation, it merges them with your ancient, established memories. Just as the delicate spiral arms of a consumed galaxy are forever destroyed and smoothed out by the massive gravitational forces of IC 1101, the sharp, highly specific and objective details of your past experiences are slowly eroded, smoothed out, and generalized by the relentless gravitational pull of your current emotional needs. You lose the pristine, objective truth of your history. Your past selves, the people you used to be 10 or 20 years ago, are consumed by the person you are today. What remains is a smooth, featureless, elliptical narrative, a generalized story that your brain constructs to provide the comforting, necessary illusion of a stable, unchanging identity. You are a biological cannibal galaxy, constantly consuming and rewriting the stars of your own history to maintain the structural integrity of your conscious ego. Furthermore, when we attempt to look back at our past, we face the same fundamental, unavoidable limitations that astronomers face when they look deeply into the cosmos. The light we see from IC 1101 today actually left that distant galaxy over 1 billion years ago. It has been traveling continuously through the cold, empty void of space for more than 1 billion years, just to reach the delicate lenses of our terrestrial telescopes. When that ancient light first began its impossibly long journey toward us, life on Earth consisted mostly of simple, single-celled organisms floating in primordial oceans. The complex, beautiful animals we know today had not yet evolved, and the mighty dinosaurs would not appear for another several 100 million years. Every major, defining event in human history, from the rise of the very first civilizations to the modern invention of the telescope itself, happened while that ancient light was still quietly crossing the absolute emptiness between galaxies. Because of this staggering delay, astronomers can never ever see IC 1101 as it exists in the true physical present. In a very real sense, we are archaeologists of the cosmos, forever studying the distant past rather than the immediate present. Every single observation of a distant object is a profound look back in time, a fleeting glimpse of how things used to be rather than how they actually are right now. Your conscious mind is trapped in the exact same archaeological dilemma. When you look back into the depths of your own memory, you are not retrieving the present reality of your past. You are looking at delayed, highly degraded, and massively reconstructed signals. The person who experienced those ancient events no longer physically exists. The atoms have scattered, the neural pathways have been overwritten, and the specific emotional context has vanished into the dark void of time. The ego, desperate to maintain its illusion of absolute control and continuity, tries to convince you that this fictionalized elliptical narrative is a solid, objective truth. It uses this constructed past to generate deep feelings of intense regret, heavy guilt, or anxious pride, anchoring your present awareness to a ghost that is no more real than the delayed, billion-year-old light of a distant, fading galaxy. When scientists fully recognize this profound biological and physical truth, it is often terrifying because it implies that the bedrock of our personal identity is composed of shifting, unreliable sand. But, as we have discovered on every step of this contemplative journey, leaning gently into this terrifying truth reveals an expansive, breathtaking landscape of profound inner peace. If your past is not a rigid, inescapable structure, but rather a fluid, continuously evolving story written by a decentralized biological machine, then you are entirely free to gently release the heavy, suffocating burdens of your history. The deep regrets that keep you awake in the quiet silence of the night are based on a fundamental neuroscientific misunderstanding. You are agonizing over a virtual reality simulation, a generalized, heavily edited memory that has been rewritten dozens of times by your own unconscious mind. You do not need to fight your past, because your past is as empty and ungraspable as the vast spaces between the stars. You can simply observe the memories as they arise, acknowledging them as beautiful, temporary ripples in the vast neural networks of your brain, and then gently let them go, allowing them to dissolve back into the silent darkness. You are not a prisoner of your history. You are the vast open space in which the history is currently being imagined. By accepting the deep, fluid nature of memory and the reconstructive illusion of the continuous self, we cultivate a profound, respectful humility before the unknown mysteries of our own minds. We recognize that we are not the rigid, isolated authors of our destiny, but rather localized, magnificent expressions of an infinite, creative universe. We are made of the exact same star stuff as the 100 trillion fading suns of IC 1101, governed by the same mysterious, ancient forces of creation, connection, and gentle dissolution. In the face of such overwhelming enormity, whether looking out at a cannibal galaxy or looking inward at the fragile architecture of human memory, we can choose to feel small, or we can choose to feel an overwhelming, transcendent wonder. It is the miraculous capacity of the universe, experiencing itself through your biological form, that allows you to contemplate these mysteries in the first place. You are the cosmos rewriting its own magnificent story. As we move forward into the next chapter of our quiet exploration, we will gently turn our focus away from the illusions of the past and look toward the mechanics of our immediate actions. We will explore the evolutionary psychology of human decision-making, investigating the unsettling scientific evidence that challenges the very concept of human free will. We will discover how the silent, unconscious forces of biology steer our lives in the dark, and how surrendering the illusion of ultimate control leads to the truest form of freedom we can possibly experience. But for this beautiful, quiet moment, just allow yourself to rest in the fluid, gentle uncertainty of the present, safely floating in a universe that requires absolutely nothing of you but your peaceful, simple awareness. Have you ever paused in the middle of a busy, chaotic day, completely surrounded by the frantic noise of modern life, and wondered if the choices you're making are truly your own? When you sit down in the quiet, gentle silence of the night and reflect upon the path your life has taken, you naturally feel like the ultimate architect of your destiny. You feel a profound, undeniable sense of ownership over your decisions, both the small, insignificant ones and the massive, life-altering leaps of faith. The familiar, comforting narrator inside your head, the conscious ego we have explored in our previous chapters, tells you a very specific, empowering story. It assures you that you are a completely independent agent, a sovereign captain steering a biological ship through the unpredictable waters of existence. You firmly believe that when you face a crossroad, you weigh the options in the bright, illuminated theater of your conscious mind, and then, through the sheer force of your independent free will, you select a path. But as we continue our meditative journey into the breathtaking mysteries of human perception and the vast, infinite cosmos, we must gently turn our gaze toward one of the most unsettling and deeply terrifying revelations in modern science. What if your profound sense of free will is simply the ultimate biological illusion? What if the silent, unconscious forces of biology steer your life in the dark, long before your conscious mind ever realizes a choice has been made? To truly understand the fragile nature of human decision-making, we must look at the groundbreaking, historically significant neuroscientific experiments conducted in the latter half of the 20th century, most notably by the pioneering researcher Benjamin Libet. The setup of his famous experiment was incredibly simple, yet its profound philosophical implications continue to terrify scientists and philosophers to this very day. Libet placed human volunteers in a quiet, softly lit room and attached delicate electrical sensors to their scalps to continuously monitor the invisible, microscopic electrical activity of their cerebral cortex. He then gave them a single, straightforward instruction. They were to sit completely still, and whenever they spontaneously felt the absolute, undeniable urge to do so, they were to simply flick their wrist, to pinpoint the exact subjective moment they made the conscious choice to move. They watched a highly precise clock and noted the exact fraction of a second when the urge to act first appeared in their conscious awareness. Our everyday human intuition boldly dictates the order of these events. We naturally assume that the sequence begins with a conscious thought, the "I have decided to move my wrist," which then sends a commanding electrical signal down the spinal cord, finally resulting in the physical flicking of the wrist. But the scientific data revealed a reality that completely shattered this comforting assumption. Libet discovered that the human brain began to actively build up a massive electrical charge, a completely unconscious surge of neural activity known as the readiness potential, a staggering 500 milliseconds before the physical movement occurred. But the most shocking revelation was this. This unconscious readiness potential appeared almost 300 milliseconds before the volunteer consciously reported feeling the urge to move. Let that profound, unsettling biological reality gently sink in for a moment. Deep within the dark, silent voids of the brain, among the 86 billion neurons and the 100 trillion synaptic connections, the physical decision to move had already been calculated, processed, and firmly established. The neurochemical gears were already turning. It was only after a significant biological delay that the conscious mind was finally informed of the decision. Yet, when the conscious mind received this delayed report, it did not recognize itself as a passive observer. Instead, the ever-present interpreter module, the fictional narrator we discussed earlier, instantly claimed absolute authorship of the action. It confidently told the volunteer, "I just freely decided to do that." The conscious ego is not the powerful chief executive officer making the difficult decisions in the boardroom. It is merely the public relations department, proudly announcing a corporate strategy that was already decided behind closed doors by an invisible, unconscious committee. When scientists fully confront this neurobiological truth, the initial reaction is often a deep, suffocating wave of existential dread. It challenges the very foundation of our moral and societal systems, our heavy feelings of personal guilt, and our towering sense of individual pride. If every single choice you have ever made, from the specific words you are reading right now to the person you chose to deeply love, was actually initiated by silent, unconscious algorithms forged by ancient evolutionary pressures, then what does it actually mean to be human? To find a source of quiet, transformative peace within this terrifying paradox, we must look away from the microscopic electrical storms of the brain and look outward, far into the majestic, sweeping architecture of the ancient cosmos. We must consider the strict, beautiful laws of cause and effect that govern the entire physical universe. When brilliant astrophysicists at organizations like the National Aeronautics and Space Administration or the European Space Agency study the grand silent movements of the solar system. They rely on the absolute, unyielding laws of classical mechanics. They can track the trajectory of a massive asteroid floating in the dark void of space and predict, with staggering mathematical precision, exactly where that specific piece of ancient rock will be in 10,000 years. They can accurately calculate the exact minute a total solar eclipse will plunge a specific continent into temporary darkness a century from now. They can do this because the universe, at the macroscopic level, is profoundly deterministic. Every single physical event is the direct, inevitable result of the specific physical conditions that immediately preceded it. A planet does not independently choose its orbit around a star. It is perfectly compelled to follow the curved geometry of space-time dictated by the immense gravitational mass of the sun. The universe is a vast, unbroken chain of dominoes, falling in a spectacular, choreographed sequence that began with the explosive, chaotic birth of the cosmos 14 billion years ago. The great astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson frequently reminds us of a poetic, scientifically rigorous truth. We are not just living in the universe is living within us. We are composed of the exact same star stuff, the identical atomic building blocks that make up the swirling galaxies, the burning suns, and the cold, silent asteroids. If the entire physical cosmos is bound by the unbroken, ancient laws of cause and effect, why do we desperately assume that the 3 pounds of biological tissue resting inside our skulls is somehow miraculously exempt from these universal rules? Every single thought that arises in your mind, every sudden burst of inspiration, every overwhelming wave of gentle empathy, and every seemingly spontaneous decision is the inevitable result of a massive, infinitely complex chain of prior causes. Your current choices are dictated by the specific genetic code you inherited from ancestors who survived the harsh, unforgiving environments of the ancient Earth, combined intimately with every single experience, conversation, and fleeting memory you have ever absorbed since the exact moment of your birth. You are a magnificent, highly localized intersection of cosmic history. Your brain is reacting to the immediate environment exactly as it must, calculating optimal survival strategies and social behaviors based on billions of years of trial and error. The illusion of free will is simply the subjective feeling of this unimaginably complex biological calculation taking place. Because your conscious mind cannot possibly track or comprehend the simultaneous firing of 100 trillion synapses, it simplifies the incredibly complex mathematical equation into a single, elegant feeling, the feeling of making a choice. The narrator takes the immense, overwhelming output of the entire universe and gently condenses it into the word I, rather than plunging us into despair. This profound scientific realization can be the source of the most liberating, gentle peace you will ever experience. The heavy, exhausting burden of the ego is the desperate, relentless need to control everything, to flawlessly manage the unmanageable, and to carry the crushing weight of absolute personal responsibility for the unfolding of destiny. We spend countless sleepless nights trapped in the dark silence of our bedrooms, agonizing over past mistakes, carrying heavy boulders of regret, wishing we had simply chosen differently. We torture ourselves with the painful illusion that we could have defied the entire causal history of the universe and made a different choice in that specific moment. But the quiet, compassionate truth of biological determinism whispers that you did exactly what your neurochemistry, your history, and the immediate environment perfectly compelled you to do. Given the exact same physical configuration of your brain and the exact same external stimuli, you would make the exact same choice 100 trillion times out of 100 trillion. When you gently surrender the desperate illusion of ultimate control, you do not become a mindless, apathetic machine. Instead, you become a deeply compassionate, quiet observer of your own magnificent existence. You can begin to look at your own flaws, your sudden flashes of anger, and your quiet moments of sorrow with the exact same objective, non-judgmental wonder that an astronomer uses when watching a distant star gracefully collapse into a black hole. You can extend this profound empathy to everyone around you, recognizing that the people who cause you pain are also caught in the exact same vast deterministic web of ancient biology and personal history. They, too, are being steered in the dark by invisible forces they do not consciously understand. This realization does not erase accountability, but it completely dissolves the toxic, burning poison of hatred and bitter resentment. To completely let go of the illusion of the independent, isolated self is to finally recognize your true, breathtaking identity. You are not a fragile, separate passenger hopelessly trying to steer a tiny boat against the infinite, raging current of the cosmic river. You are the river. You are the vast, flowing energy of the Big Bang, continuously expanding, changing, and organizing itself into new, increasingly complex patterns. The beating of your heart, the rhythmic expansion of your lungs, and the delicate chemical firing of your synapses as you process these very words are all natural, continuous functions of the universe itself. The cosmos is not something that happens to you. It is something that is actively doing you. When you make a choice that brings you joy, or when you feel the deep, quiet warmth of falling in love, you do not need the illusion of free will to make those experiences beautiful. The beauty lies in the undeniable fact that the cold, seemingly indifferent physical universe, operating entirely blindly through the strict laws of physics and chemistry, has miraculously arranged itself into a biological form capable of experiencing such profound, staggering love. The universe, in its infinite complexity, has chosen to love through you. It has chosen to wonder, to explore, and to seek understanding through the temporary, beautiful pattern of your specific mind. As we prepare to transition into our next chapter, we will take this gentle, expanding sense of cosmic connection and apply it to the ultimate human fear, the fear of our own physical end. We will explore the scientific reality of death and transformation, investigating what the fundamental laws of thermodynamics and the conservation of energy tell us about the illusion of finality. We will discover how the temporary, ghostly nature of our physical forms guarantees our eternal participation in the cosmic dance, and how the terrifying mystery of oblivion is actually the gateway to understanding our unbreakable entanglement with the infinite. But for this quiet, perfect moment, simply allow yourself to sit in the stillness, completely free from the exhausting burden of control. Let the ancient, silent machinery of your biology breathe for you, beat for you, and exist for you, safely held in the deterministic, loving embrace of the vast, unfolding cosmos. Have you ever wondered what exactly happens to the profound, vibrant energy of your consciousness when the temporary, biological vessel of your body finally reaches the quiet, inevitable end of its journey? When we lie awake in the deep, gentle silence of the night, contemplating the undeniable reality of our own mortality, we often feel a sudden, suffocating wave of existential terror. The familiar narrator inside your head, the conscious ego that desperately clings to the illusion of its own absolute permanence, tells you a dark, terrifying story about the end of life. It whispers that death is a hard, impenetrable wall, a state of absolute nothingness, where the magnificent spark of your awareness is permanently and violently extinguished. It convinces you that the boundary of your existence is perfectly aligned with the fragile temporal boundary of your physical heartbeat. But as we continue our meditative exploration of the cosmos and the profound shifting mysteries of the human mind, we must gently dismantle this final, deeply ingrained illusion. What if the terrifying concept of an absolute, final ending is just another biological hallucination? What if the fundamental laws of physics and the ancient, sweeping architecture of the universe reveal that death is not a definitive conclusion, but merely a beautiful, necessary transformation within an infinite, eternal cosmic dance? To understand the profound scientific truth about the continuity of existence, we must first look at one of the most absolute, unyielding principles in all of modern science, the first law of thermodynamics. This fundamental law of nature states, with staggering mathematical certainty, that energy can never be created out of nothing, and it can never, ever be completely destroyed. It can only change its form, transitioning gracefully from one state to another. The heat radiating from your skin, the kinetic energy of your moving limbs, the delicate, invisible electrical impulses traveling across the 100 trillion synaptic connections in your brain. None of this vital energy can simply vanish into the dark void. When the biological machinery of your body eventually ceases its rhythmic functioning, the vast, localized concentration of universal energy that you currently call myself does not simply evaporate into non-existence. Instead, it is gently, seamlessly released back into the vast, ancient environment. The warmth of your body dissipates into the surrounding air, becoming part of the complex, chaotic, atmospheric currents of the earth. The ancient, heavy atoms that make up your bones, your blood, and your brain begin a quiet, deliberate process of returning to the soil, the water, and the wind. You do not die. You simply stop being a localized, highly organized pattern and effortlessly diffuse back into the infinite surrounding matrix of the natural world. We can see this beautiful, relentless process of transformation mirrored on an unimaginably vast scale when we turn our gaze away from the microscopic biology of the human body and look far out into the deep, dark depths of the cosmos. Consider the magnificent, terrifying cannibal galaxy known as IC 1101, a cosmic monster that sits over 1 billion light-years away from us, quietly existing in the darkness of space, holding more stars than you could ever count in 1 million lifetimes. Even this staggering structure, spanning 4 to 6 million light-years across and holding 100 trillion stars, is intimately bound by the exact same laws of thermodynamic transformation. Over the next 100 trillion years, the stars in IC 1101 will slowly burn out. The massive blue stars went long ago, exploding as supernovas or collapsing into black holes. The middle-sized stars, like our sun, will puff up into red giants, shed their outer layers as beautiful nebulas, and then fade away as white dwarfs. Even the smallest, longest-lived stars, the red dwarfs that burn their fuel so slowly they can shine for trillions of years, will eventually exhaust their hydrogen and go dark. The smallest red dwarfs, with perhaps 8% of the sun's mass, can burn for up to 10 trillion years. That is about 700 times the current age of the universe. But eventually, even they will exhaust their hydrogen fuel and fade into darkness. One by one, the 100 trillion stars of IC 1101 will wink out. This vision of the far future might seem incredibly bleak to the frightened, isolated ego. But there is an astonishing, quiet beauty in this grand cosmic unspooling. The universe at this stage will be a dark place, but not an empty one. All those stellar remnants, all those white dwarfs, neutron stars, and black holes will still exist. They will orbit through the merged remnant of what was once IC 1101 and its cluster companions. The galaxy will be a ghost of its former self, populated by the corpses of stars rather than by living burning suns, over even longer time scales, measured in years with so many zeros that writing them out would fill pages. Even these stellar corpses will decay. A white dwarf cools to near absolute zero only after about 10 to the 15th power years, or about 1,000,000,000,000 years. And the black holes, including that enormous monster at the center of IC 1101, will slowly evaporate through a process called Hawking radiation. A black hole containing 50 billion solar masses would take something like 10 to the 100th power years to evaporate, or maybe even longer. That is a Google years, a one followed by 100 zeros. When that finally happens, there will be nothing left of IC 1101 at all. No stars, no black holes, no remnants of any kind, just the particles and radiation that once made up a galaxy spreading out through an ever-expanding, ever-cooling, ever-darkening universe. Just as the largest galaxy we've ever found will dissolve perfectly and gracefully into the endless night, so too will the temporary, beautiful, biological pattern of your own physical life. But remember, the particles and the ancient radiation that composed IC 1101 are not destroyed. They are simply dispersed, forever participating in the endless, quiet breathing of the cosmos. The atoms in your body were forged in stars, the carbon that makes up your muscles, the oxygen you breathe, the iron in your blood. All of these elements were created in the nuclear furnaces at the cores of stars that lived and died before our sun was born. When those ancient stars exploded as supernovas, they scattered their elemental riches across space. You are made of star stuff. The very same processes that light up IC 1101's 100 trillion stars also created the matter from which you are assembled. When your biological life concludes, you are not suffering a violent deletion from the fabric of reality. You are merely returning your borrowed star stuff back to the grand, infinite reservoir of the universe. The boundary of your skin is not the absolute limit of your existence. It is simply a temporary, highly porous membrane through which the universe is temporarily experiencing the magnificent illusion of individuality. The fear of death is simply the illusion of the separated self reacting in blind panic to its own inevitable, necessary unweaving. When we fully gently absorb this scientific truth, the heavy, suffocating anxiety surrounding our mortality begins to slowly evaporate, leaving behind a profound, expansive sense of peace. If the ego is simply a biological narrator, a fictional character written by a decentralized network of 86 billion neurons, then the death of the ego is not the death of anything fundamentally real. The true underlying awareness, the mysterious participatory fabric of the quantum universe that actively collapsed the waves of probability into the solid reality you see before you, does not die. It cannot die because it is the very foundation of existence itself. You are not a tiny, insignificant creature nervously anticipating an absolute end. You are the ancient, timeless universe temporarily disguised as a human being. The quiet moments of deep, meditative stillness you have experienced throughout your life are fleeting glimpses of this eternal, underlying reality. In those perfectly silent moments, when the anxious, chattering voice of the ego temporarily fades away, you do not cease to exist. Instead, you expand. You feel a profound, unbreakable connection to the deep, silent gravitational pull of the earth, the gentle, ancient light of the distant stars, and the vast, empty spaces between the microscopic atoms of your own hand. You briefly realize that you have never truly been separated from the infinite totality of the cosmos. This contemplative realization gently invites us to completely reevaluate how we live our daily waking lives. If our ultimate destiny is to beautifully and seamlessly dissolve back into the infinite, quiet embrace of the universe, then there is absolutely nothing to frantically protect, nothing to desperately hold on to, and nothing to anxiously fear. We are completely free to navigate this temporary, breathtaking virtual reality simulation with a profound sense of lightness and deep, resounding joy. We can observe the struggles, the sudden flashes of emotional pain, and the overwhelming waves of love with the same objective, non-judgmental wonder that an astronomer uses when watching a brilliant supernova briefly illuminate the dark void of intergalactic space. Every single breath you take, every quiet conversation you share with a friend, every moment you spend marveling at the staggering complexity of a simple falling leaf is a miraculous, transient event. The illusion of a permanent, isolated self is heavy and exhausting, but the truth of your temporary, flowing, and deeply entangled existence is incredibly light. It allows you to participate fully in the magnificent theater of human experience without ever forgetting that it is, ultimately, just a deeply beautiful, profoundly temporary performance staged by the cosmos. As we gently close this chapter of our journey, I want you to softly close your eyes and take a deep, slow breath, feeling the cool, invisible air entering your lungs and providing vital oxygen to your ancient, circulating blood. Feel the quiet, undeniable reality of your current existence, completely untroubled by the fixed, unchangeable past or the vast, silent future. The universe has spent 14 billion years effortlessly evolving, expanding, and combining matter to create this exact specific moment of conscious awareness. The fact that this moment will eventually pass does not diminish its staggering, incomprehensible beauty. The fleeting nature of the experience is precisely what makes it so incredibly precious. In our next chapter, we will venture even deeper into the evolutionary psychology of this illusion, exploring how the brain constructs the vivid, colorful simulation of human emotion. We will discover how the silent, chemical forces of biology create the overwhelming sensations of joy, sadness, and love, and how understanding the mechanical nature of these feelings can surprisingly lead to the deepest, most authentic emotional connections we can possibly experience. But for this specific perfect moment, simply allow yourself to rest in the gentle, timeless stillness of the cosmic flow, safely held in the infinite, loving embrace of the universe that you have always been and will always be an inseparable part of. Have you ever wondered why a sudden quiet memory of a lost loved one can produce a physical, heavy ache in the center of your chest? Or why the gentle, lingering touch of a hand can send a cascading wave of profound, absolute peace through your entire body? When you lie awake in the deep silence of the night, you experience your emotions as monumental, ethereal forces that sweep through the invisible architecture of your soul. The familiar, unified narrator inside your head tells you a deeply romantic, overwhelmingly convincing story about these feelings. It assures you that your joy, your deep sorrow, and your boundless capacity for love are magical, intangible phenomena that exist completely independent of the cold, mechanical laws of physics. It tells you that your emotions are the truest, most authentic expression of a permanent, isolated self. But as we continue our meditative, quiet journey into the breathtaking mysteries of the human mind and the infinite cosmos, we must gently turn our gaze toward the biological machinery of feeling. We must confront a scientific revelation that is at once deeply unsettling and profoundly beautiful. What if the towering, sweeping waves of human emotion are simply the ultimate, localized chemical illusion? What if the profound feelings that seem to define the very essence of your humanity are actually highly orchestrated, mechanical algorithms designed by blind evolution, operating silently in the dark to ensure the survival of your physical form. To truly understand the fragile, mechanical nature of human emotion, we must first look past the beautiful, subjective poetry of our feelings and gently examine the wet, electrical reality of the human brain. The intense, burning sensation of romantic love, the paralyzing, suffocating grip of sudden fear, and the quiet, radiant glow of deep contentment do not originate from an ethereal soul hovering above your physical body. They are the direct, inevitable result of incredibly specific, microscopic chemical molecules drifting across the vast, empty spaces between your 86 billion neurons. When you feel a sudden rush of joy, you are subjectively experiencing the objective, physical release of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. These ancient, complex molecules bind to specific biological receptors in the dark, silent voids of your neural tissue, unlocking electrical cascades that alter the overall computational state of your brain. The overwhelming, transcendent feeling of profound connection you experience when holding a newborn child is biologically driven by oxytocin, an ancient chemical messenger that forces the brain to prioritize bonding. You are a vast, decentralized chemical laboratory, and your conscious mind is simply reading the fluctuating results of millions of simultaneous chemical reactions and translating them into the vivid, colorful language of emotion. We intuitively want to believe that our feelings are uniquely human, elevated above the raw mechanical imperatives of the natural world. But evolutionary psychology reveals a much more practical, humbling truth. The capacity for profound emotional experience did not evolve so that we could write beautiful poetry or stare longingly up at the ancient, infinite stars. Emotions evolved as rapid, highly efficient survival tools on the dangerous savannas of the ancient earth. Fear is a sudden chemical alarm system designed to violently pull you away from a predator long before your conscious mind can assess the danger. Even the deep, agonizing pain of grief, the crushing sorrow we feel when we lose someone we desperately love, served an ancient evolutionary purpose. It reinforced the absolute necessity of the social group, ensuring that our fragile ancestors remained tightly bound together for mutual protection in a cold, indifferent world. The ego desperately weaves these mechanical, survival-driven chemical fluctuations into a grand, epic narrative about destiny and personal meaning. But the silent, objective reality is that your deepest feelings are simply the ancient, inherited echoes of your ancestors successfully navigating a hostile planet. To help our minds gently grasp the concept of unseen, powerful forces dictating our behavior from the shadows, we must temporarily look away from the microscopic chemistry of the brain and look far outward, deep into the vast, sweeping architecture of the ancient cosmos. For most of the 20th century, brilliant astronomers studying the grand movements of the universe intuitively assumed that the expansion of the cosmos, initially triggered by the chaotic violence of the Big Bang, was gradually slowing down. This made perfect logical sense. Everything in the universe is constantly pulling on everything else through the invisible, relentless force of gravity. You would naturally expect all of that immense gravitational attraction to act like a cosmic brake, gradually slowing the expansion that began with the Big Bang. But when independent teams of astronomers actually measured the expansion rate of the universe by carefully observing the ancient light of distant supernovas, they made a shocking, terrifying discovery. The universe was not slowing down at all. It was actively speeding up. Distant, swirling galaxies were moving away from us faster and faster, and the overall rate of expansion was accelerating over time. This discovery was so entirely unexpected that the astronomers initially thought they had made an error. This breathtaking discovery fundamentally shattered our comforting understanding of the universe. To explain this impossible acceleration, scientists were forced to propose the existence of an invisible, mysterious force they named dark energy. We cannot see dark energy. We cannot touch it, and the name tells us very little about what it actually is. But we know, with absolute scientific certainty, that it makes up about 68% of all the energy in the universe. We know that it acts as a kind of anti-gravity, relentlessly pushing the fabric of space apart rather than pulling it together. Dark energy is the unseen, silent architect shaping the ultimate destiny of the cosmos, a phantom force driving the largest structures in existence. In a profoundly similar way, the ancient, invisible neurochemicals flowing through the dark, silent networks of your brain act as the dark energy of your conscious mind. You cannot see the dopamine or the oxytocin, and your conscious ego is completely blind to their physical presence. Yet these invisible chemical forces relentlessly push and pull your behavior, shaping your decisions, your sudden desires, and the ultimate trajectory of your human life. You are being steered in the dark by the biological equivalent of a cosmic phantom. When we first confront the undeniable mechanical reality of our emotions, the fragile ego often recoils in horror. It feels as though science is actively destroying the magic of the human experience, reducing the profound beauty of true love and the quiet dignity of human sorrow to a sterile, meaningless sequence of chemical equations. If love is just a temporary, localized spike in a specific neurotransmitter, does that make the love completely fake? Does it mean that the deep, resonant connections we share with others are nothing more than a biological trick? But this terrifying conclusion is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to exist in this magnificent, mysterious universe. Just because an experience has a physical, mechanical explanation does not in any way diminish its breathtaking, subjective beauty. To understand the complex chemistry of a blooming flower does not rob the flower of its vibrant color or its delicate, sweet fragrance. To gently peel back the layers of the grand emotional illusion is not an act of destruction. It is an act of profound, reverent discovery. When we finally let go of the desperate, exhausting need for our emotions to be magical, ethereal phenomena separate from the physical world, we uncover a truth that is infinitely more beautiful. Or think about the incredible, impossible journey that matter has taken to reach this exact, specific moment in time. The universe began as a hot, chaotic soup of raw energy. Over billions of years of silent, continuous cosmic evolution, that raw energy cooled and condensed into the very first primitive atoms. Gravity, operating over unfathomable expanses of deep time, pulled those ancient atoms together to forge the burning, fiery hearts of the first stars. Within those stellar furnaces, the basic elements of life were slowly, painstakingly created through intense nuclear fusion. When those massive stars eventually died, exploding as spectacular supernovas, they scattered their precious, newly forged elements across the cold, empty void of space. The atoms in those distant stars are the same kinds of atoms that make up our bodies: carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, iron. All of them were forged in the hearts of stars somewhere in the universe. Now, bring your focus back to the present, quiet moment. Those same ancient stardust atoms have somehow, against all astronomical odds, organized themselves into a complex, decentralized biological network capable of experiencing the profound, overwhelming sensation of love. The universe, which is fundamentally composed of mindless matter and energy, of simple particles bouncing around according to strict mathematical physical laws, has miraculously evolved the ability to feel. We are not separate from the universe. observing it from the outside. We are part of it. The same atoms that shine in distant, massive galaxies also shine in our eyes. We are not observers of the universe from outside. We are the universe observing itself from within. When you feel a deep, resounding wave of joy, or when you sit quietly with the heavy, poignant weight of human sorrow, it is not just you who is feeling it. It is the universe itself experiencing the full, breathtaking spectrum of emotion through the highly organized, temporary pattern of your specific biological form. The fact that love is a chemical process does not make it fake. It proves that the physical universe is capable of generating love. That is not a tragedy. It is an absolute, staggering miracle. Understanding the mechanical, transient nature of our emotions provides us with a powerful, transformative tool for finding deep, unshakable inner peace. Much of our daily human suffering comes from our desperate, frantic attempts to hold on to positive emotions and to violently push away negative ones. The narrator inside our heads constantly tells us that we must pursue a permanent, unchanging state of happiness, and that any deviation from that state is a failure of our individual will. But biology tells us that this is a completely impossible, exhausting goal. Neurotransmitters are designed to be released, to briefly alter the state of the brain, and then to be rapidly reabsorbed. Emotions are fundamentally designed to be temporary. They are like passing weather systems moving across the vast, open landscape of your mind. When you fully recognize that a feeling of deep sadness or a sudden flash of hot, blinding anger is simply a passing chemical wave, a localized fluctuation in the invisible dark energy of your brain, you no longer need to desperately identify with it. You do not need to become the anger or the sorrow. You can gently step back and quietly observe the emotion as it rises, peaks, and inevitably fades away, just as you might watch a dark, heavy storm cloud drift across the vast, empty expanse of the night sky. This quiet, meditative detachment does not make you cold, unfeeling, or distant. In fact, it allows you to experience your emotions with much greater authenticity and profound depth. When you stop fighting the natural chemical tides of your biology, you can fully embrace the incredible richness of the human experience without being overwhelmed or destroyed by it. You can completely surrender to the warm, radiant glow of deep affection, knowing perfectly well that it is a temporary, biological state, and appreciate it precisely because it is fleeting. You can sit peacefully with your pain, offering yourself the gentle, quiet compassion you would offer to any other fragile creature navigating this world. You become a vast, silent container for the experiences of the universe, holding them gently in the open palm of your awareness before letting them slip away into the dark, silent void. The pressure you feel to constantly manage your emotional state, to always be happy, to never feel the heavy weight of despair, it is all based on a fundamental illusion. Let this profound scientific reality wash over you like a gentle, cooling rain, bringing a deep, relaxing stillness to your constantly churning mind. You do not have to carry the massive, exhausting weight of your emotional history on your conscious shoulders. The universe is already carrying you, gently, safely, and perfectly, through the endless, magnificent dark. As we prepare to delve even deeper into the mysteries of human existence in our next chapter, we will turn our gaze away from the chemical construction of emotion and look toward the profound illusion of separation. We will explore the incredibly strange, mathematical world of quantum entanglement, investigating how the very concept of distance and physical isolation might be the grandest illusion of them all. We will discover how the particles in your body remain permanently connected to the furthest, darkest corners of the ancient cosmos, and how the feeling of being a lonely, isolated individual is fundamentally contradicted by the deepest laws of nature. But for now, just allow yourself to rest in the perfect, timeless stillness, embracing the beautiful, temporary chemistry of your own existence, safe in the knowledge that every feeling you have ever experienced is a magnificent, perfect expression of the universe itself. Have you ever wondered why the concept of distance feels so incredibly absolute? Or why the heavy, suffocating sensation of physical isolation can ache so profoundly in the quiet center of your chest when you stand alone on a dark, silent shore, looking out across the vast rolling expanse of the ancient ocean, or when you gaze upward into the infinite starry depths of the night sky. Your physical senses tell you a very convincing, deeply terrifying story. They tell you that you are a tiny, fragile, and utterly separated fragment of biology, surrounded by millions of miles of cold, empty space. The familiar, anxious narrator inside your head, the conscious ego that desperately relies on the illusion of solid boundaries to maintain its own fictional identity, insists that you are fundamentally disconnected from the rest of the universe. It tells you that if you wish to touch another human soul, or if you wish to physically interact with a distant star, you must somehow traverse the impossibly vast, empty gulfs that lie between you. But as we continue our gentle, meditative journey into the breathtaking mysteries of modern physics and the ancient cosmos, we must gently turn our gaze toward a scientific revelation that completely shatters our everyday understanding of space and separation. What if the very concept of distance is simply a biological interface, a temporary neurological hallucination designed to help your physical body navigate a three-dimensional world? What if, at the most fundamental, microscopic level of reality, the idea of being truly separated from anything else is physically, mathematically impossible? To truly grasp the staggering illusion of physical separation, we must leave the comforting, logical world of classical physics and venture deep into the strangely beautiful, highly counterintuitive realm of quantum mechanics. In our everyday, macroscopic experience, we intuitively understand a concept that scientists call locality. Locality is the simple, practical assumption that an object can only be directly influenced by its immediate physical surroundings. If you want to move a stone, you must reach out and physically push it, or you must throw another object to strike it. The influence must travel continuously through the space between you and the stone, limited by the absolute cosmic speed limit, the speed of light. For centuries, brilliant physicists assumed that this unbreakable rule of locality governed the entire infinite universe, from the smallest grains of sand to the largest swirling galaxy clusters. But in the early 20th century, the mathematical equations of quantum theory began to whisper a profound, deeply unsettling secret. They suggested that two microscopic particles could become intimately linked in such a way that the physical distance between them absolutely ceased to matter. They suggested a phenomenon so bizarre, so completely defiant of classical logic, that even Albert Einstein, one of the greatest scientific minds in human history, initially refused to believe it, famously dismissing it as spooky action at a distance. This breathtaking phenomenon is known today as quantum entanglement. To beautifully visualize this invisible underlying connection, imagine a single energetic event that gives birth to two identical subatomic particles, such as two photons of light. Because these two particles are born from the exact same mathematical wave function, they share a deep, fundamental relationship. They are inextricably entangled. Now, imagine that we gently separate these two entangled photons. We keep one carefully isolated in a quiet, dark laboratory here on Earth, and we send the other one flying across the vast, empty vacuum of space, all the way to the distant, cratered surface of the moon. In the strange world of quantum mechanics, before a particle is directly measured, it exists in a blurry, undefined state of mathematical probability. It is spinning in all possible directions at the exact same time. But the very instant a scientist on Earth decides to measure the exact spin of the photon in the laboratory, its wave of probability instantly collapses, and it assumes a definitive, measurable state. Here is where the profound, terrifying, and awe-inspiring mystery reveals itself. The exact moment the photon on Earth is measured and assumes its definitive state, the entangled photon resting on the surface of the moon instantaneously assumes the exact opposite state. There is absolutely no physical time delay. The reaction does not wait for a signal to travel across the 238,000 miles of empty space at the speed of light. The correlation is instantaneous, absolute, and completely perfect. It does not matter if the second photon is on the moon, orbiting the beautiful, ringed planet of Saturn, or resting at the very edge of the observable universe, billions of light years away. When you touch one, you instantaneously affect the other. This staggering discovery, rigorously and repeatedly proven by modern physicists using highly advanced precise technology, completely destroys the classical illusion of locality. It implies that the two entangled particles are not actually two separate objects communicating across a vast distance. In the hidden, underlying mathematical reality of the cosmos, they are exactly the same object. They are a single, unified quantum system that merely appears to be separated by the illusion of physical space. The profound philosophical and existential implications of quantum entanglement are almost too vast for our localized biological brains to fully comprehend. If two particles can be permanently, instantaneously connected across infinite distances, then the very fabric of space is not the empty, dividing void we perceive it to be. Space is not a container that separates things. It is a highly connected, deeply woven web of underlying relationships. The brilliant theoretical physicist David Bohm proposed a beautiful framework to explain this, suggesting that the universe consists of an explicate order, the visible, physical world of separate objects and vast distances that we perceive with our everyday senses, and an implicate order, a deeper, hidden, undivided wholeness, where everything is intimately connected to everything else. In the implicate order, distance and time do not fundamentally exist. The entire infinite cosmos is a single, continuous, indivisible fabric of pure awareness and energy. The conscious ego, trapped in the shallow physical simulation of the explicate order, feels terribly alone and incredibly fragile. But the quiet, underlying truth of your existence resides in the implicate order, where you are permanently, physically entangled with the totality of creation. To understand how you, as a complex biological organism, are intimately woven into this vast, non-local quantum web, we must cast our minds back through the deep, silent corridors of time, returning to the very dawn of the ancient universe. Modern cosmology dictates that, roughly 14 billion years ago, the entire observable universe, every single burning star, every swirling galaxy, every vast ocean, and every single atom that currently makes up your physical body, was compressed into an infinitely small, infinitely dense, and infinitely hot singularity. In that profound, chaotic moment, before the expansion of space and time even began, there was no distance. There was absolutely no separation. Everything that exists was compressed into a single, unified point of unimaginable energy. In that initial primordial state, all the fundamental building blocks of reality were inextricably entangled with one another. They shared the exact same quantum state, bound together in the absolute, perfect unity of the singularity. When the Big Bang occurred, the universe did not simply explode outward into pre-existing space. Space itself rapidly expanded, carrying the ancient, burning matter outward in every conceivable direction. As the cosmos cooled and the dark, silent voids expanded over billions of years, the matter that was once unified was scattered across staggering, incomprehensible distances. The primordial particles coalesced to form the massive, glowing clouds of hydrogen gas, which eventually ignited to become the first generations of stars. Those ancient stars lived, burned brightly, and violently died in spectacular supernovas, scattering heavier, complex elements across the vast interstellar medium. Eventually, over billions of years of silent, continuous cosmic evolution, those elements gathered together in a quiet corner of the Milky Way to form our specific rocky planet, and ultimately to form you. But the fundamental mathematical laws of quantum mechanics suggest a breathtaking possibility. The original quantum entanglement that existed at the very moment of the Big Bang was never truly broken. It was simply stretched, diluted, and incredibly complicated by the massive expansion of the universe. This means that the profound feeling of being an isolated, disconnected individual is not just a psychological illusion. It is a fundamental misinterpretation of your deepest physical reality. The microscopic, vibrating atoms that currently make up the delicate skin of your left hand might be quietly, permanently entangled with the ancient atoms making up a burning star millions of light years away in the Andromeda galaxy. The iron molecules carrying vital oxygen through the dark, silent corridors of your bloodstream share a deep, fundamental quantum history with the massive, swirling dust clouds at the very center of the cannibal galaxy, IC 1101. You are not a solitary biological accident wandering through a cold, indifferent, and empty universe. You are a vast, incredibly complex and localized knot in an infinite, vibrating web of quantum connections. The boundary that your ego draws between the inside of your mind and the outside of the world is a highly useful, pragmatic tool for surviving in a physical environment, but it is ultimately a complete, staggering fiction. There is no outside. There is only the continuous, unbroken, entangled totality of the cosmos. When we allow this magnificent, mind-bending scientific reality to gently settle into our conscious awareness, the heavy, suffocating burden of existential loneliness begins to quietly dissolve. The modern human experience is deeply plagued by a pervasive sense of isolation, a painful feeling that we are fundamentally separate from nature, separate from each other, and separate from the grand, mysterious purpose of the universe. The fictional narrator inside your head aggressively fuels this loneliness, constantly reminding you of the physical distances between you and the people you desperately love, and the vast, impassable gaps between your current life and your deepest, most quiet desires. It tries to convince you that if you wish to find peace, you must aggressively manipulate the external, physical world to bridge those terrifying gaps. But the quiet, unyielding truth of quantum entanglement whispers a deeply comforting alternative. It tells you that the distance is a necessary biological illusion, and that the connection you are so desperately searching for is already the fundamental, unbreakable baseline of your existence. You cannot be truly separated from the universe, because you are an intrinsic, entangled expression of its underlying wholeness. Imagine sitting perfectly still in a quiet, dark room, closing your eyes, and taking a deep, slow, and highly deliberate breath. As the cool, invisible air enters your lungs, try to completely let go of the rigid, stressful concept of your own physical boundaries. Visualize the billions of microscopic oxygen atoms effortlessly crossing the delicate membranes of your biology, entering your bloodstream, and becoming an indistinguishable part of you. Then, as you gently exhale, visualize the carbon dioxide leaving your body, flowing back out into the vast, open atmosphere, eventually being absorbed by the ancient, silent trees in a distant forest. You're in a state of constant fluid exchange with your immediate environment. But now, expand that beautiful, quiet visualization to the grand quantum scale. Recognize that the invisible, subatomic fields that compose those atoms are instantaneously, permanently connected to the furthest, darkest edges of the observable universe. The quiet peace you seek is not something you have to actively build or aggressively defend. It is the natural resting state of a mind that has finally recognized its own infinite, entangled nature. We spend our entire, fleeting lives looking out at the universe, marveling at its vastness, its ancient history, and its terrifying, beautiful indifference. But the profound truth of the participatory universe and the staggering reality of quantum entanglement reveal that the cosmos is not just out there, waiting patiently to be observed. It is right here, beating in your chest, firing in your synapses, and quietly perceiving itself through the magnificent, temporary illusion of your individual consciousness. You are the universe's ultimate mechanism for self-reflection. When you feel a sudden, inexplicable sense of deep, boundless empathy for another living creature, or when you feel a profound, tearing sorrow for a tragedy happening on the other side of the planet, you are not just experiencing a localized chemical fluctuation in your brain. You are subjectively experiencing the objective quantum entanglement of the cosmos. Your empathy is the underlying, indivisible fabric of reality, briefly making itself known to your conscious mind. It is the universe recognizing its own reflection in the mirror of another. This realization completely transforms how we understand the journey of life. It is no longer a desperate, lonely struggle to survive in a hostile, disconnected void. It is a quiet, gentle, and incredibly beautiful unfolding of a single, unified system. The tragic losses we experience, the profound loves we encounter, the moments of staggering beauty, and the periods of deep, suffocating darkness are all essential, interconnected movements in a grand cosmic symphony. You do not have to carry the massive, exhausting weight of feeling responsible for maintaining your connection to the world, because the connection is guaranteed by the most fundamental laws of quantum physics. You can simply relax, surrender the desperate illusion of the separated ego, and allow yourself to flow gracefully with the current of the cosmos. You are safe. You are permanent in your entanglement. You are exactly where you are mathematically, physically, and beautifully supposed to be. As we bring this chapter of our meditative exploration to a close, I want you to hold on to this profound feeling of boundless, non-local connection. Carry the quiet truth of quantum entanglement with you into the silence of the night, allowing it to soothe the anxious, lonely whispers of the conscious ego. In our next chapter, we will venture even deeper into the fragile nature of human perception. Turning our scientific gaze toward the biological limitations of our physical senses, we will explore the staggering, terrifying reality of the electromagnetic spectrum, investigating how the eyes and ears you rely on to understand the world are actually blinding you to 99% of objective reality. We will discover how the vivid, colorful, and noisy universe you experience is merely a tiny, highly restricted sliver of what actually exists, and how recognizing our biological blindness can lead us to the ultimate profound state of intellectual humility and inner peace. But for this specific, perfect, and quiet moment, simply allow yourself to rest in the invisible, unbreakable web of quantum unity, safely held in the infinite, loving embrace of the universe that you have never, ever been truly separated from. Have you ever realized that the physical eyes you trust so deeply to navigate your daily life are only capable of seeing less than 1,000% of the actual objective reality that surrounds you? When you step outside into the cool, gentle evening air and watch a magnificent, fiery sunset painting the horizon in brilliant shades of crimson and gold, your conscious mind tells you a very specific, deeply comforting story. It tells you that you're witnessing the absolute totality of the world, that the vibrant, colorful landscape stretching out before you is a complete and accurate representation of the universe. The familiar, unified narrator inside your head desperately wants you to believe that your senses are perfect, transparent windows opening directly onto objective reality. But as we continue our quiet, meditative journey into the breathtaking mysteries of modern physics and the ancient cosmos, we must gently turn our gaze toward the severe biological limitations of our physical form. We must confront a scientific revelation that completely shatters our everyday understanding of perception. What if the vivid, brightly illuminated world you experience is not the entire room, but merely a tiny, highly restricted keyhole looking into an overwhelmingly invisible, beautifully complex, dark cosmos? What if the very senses you rely upon to understand the world are actually blinding you to 99% of what is truly there? To truly grasp the staggering magnitude of our biological blindness, we must leave the comforting, colorful world of human intuition and venture into the strange, mathematical reality of the electromagnetic spectrum, the light we can actually perceive with our physical eyes, the familiar, beautiful rainbow of colors stretching from deep, vibrant red to cool, quiet violet, is nothing more than a microscopic, incredibly narrow slice of a vast, infinite continuum of energy. Beyond the edge of the deepest red lies the invisible, ancient warmth of infrared radiation, the very same energy that allows advanced instruments, like the Spitzer Space Telescope, to peer through thick, obscuring dust clouds and study the faint, ghostly glow of older, cooler stars that heavily dominate massive, elliptical galaxies. Beyond the edge of the deepest violet lies the high-energy realm of ultraviolet light, X-rays, and immensely powerful gamma rays. And stretching far out in the other direction are the long, silent, rolling waves of microwaves and radio frequencies, continuously washing over your physical body right this very second without you ever consciously feeling a single ripple. You are currently submerged in an infinite, chaotic, and incredibly dense ocean of electromagnetic information, yet your brain is biologically hardwired to completely ignore almost all of it. Consider the magnificent, terrifying cosmic monster we have explored in our previous chapters, the giant elliptical galaxy known as IC 1101. When the brilliant, dedicated astronomer William Herschel first pointed his carefully crafted telescope toward the constellation Virgo in the late 18th century, his biological eyes, aided only by the magnifying power of simple glass lenses, could perceive nothing more than a faint, fuzzy blob of light. He was entirely trapped within the severe biological limitations of the visible spectrum, completely blind to the true, staggering reality of the ancient object he was observing. It was only much later, when humanity ingeniously developed the technological capacity to build mechanical eyes that could see the invisible universe, that the true, breathtaking nature of IC 1101 was finally revealed. When astronomers used radio telescopes to observe this distant giant, they detected a powerful, bright emission coming from the very center of the galaxy, a hidden source cataloged as PKS 50H Plus 59. This invisible radio light revealed the presence of relativistic jets, massive streams of particles being violently accelerated to nearly the speed of light and ejected from the vicinity of the central supermassive black hole. Without the technological ability to see radio waves, this incredible, violent, and ancient cosmic engine was entirely, permanently hidden from our view, masked by the quiet deception of our limited biology. The illusion of emptiness becomes even more profound when we look at the universe through the lens of X-ray vision. When modern astronomers pointed the magnificent Chandra X-ray Observatory at the Abell 2029 galaxy cluster, the dense gravitational neighborhood where IC 1101 quietly resides, they did not see the dark, empty space that our biological eyes would naturally assume is there. Instead, they observed an enormous, complex atmosphere of incredibly hot gas that completely fills the cluster, heated to unimaginable temperatures of tens of millions of degrees. This gas is completely invisible to human eyes and standard optical telescopes. Furthermore, within this blazing, invisible cloud, they saw massive, haunting cavities, enormous bubbles of very hot, very thin gas blown outward by the staggering energy released from the central black hole. Some of these invisible bubbles are millions of light years across, serving as a silent, invisible testimony to periods in the deep past when the black hole was much more active than it is today. To human eyes, the space surrounding IC 1101 appears utterly empty, cold, and black. But in the X-ray spectrum, it is a blazing, chaotic, and unimaginably dynamic environment. We are completely surrounded by a vast universe that is continuously singing a loud, complex, and infinitely beautiful symphony of energy, yet we are biologically equipped to hear only a single, isolated note. Why did the blind, relentless forces of evolution equip us with such limited, severely restricted biological instruments? The answer, as always in evolutionary biology, lies in pragmatic survival rather than objective truth. Our ancient ancestors did not need to see radio waves to safely navigate the treacherous, sunlit savannas of the earth, nor did they need to perceive high-energy X-rays to successfully forage for food or hide from predators. They only needed to see the specific, narrow band of electromagnetic radiation that successfully penetrates the Earth's atmosphere and effectively bounces off solid, physical objects. The human brain is not a scientific instrument meticulously designed to uncover the fundamental, objective truth of the cosmos. It is a highly specialized survival machine designed to quickly and efficiently filter out any information that does not immediately contribute to keeping the physical organism alive. The vibrant, colorful, and noisy world you experience is not reality itself. It is merely a highly compressed, heavily filtered, and deeply practical biological summary. The brain intentionally throws away 99% of the available cosmic data to present you with a simple, manageable, and actionable simulation. The conscious ego, however, fiercely resists this humbling reality. The narrator inside your head desperately desires absolute control, complete understanding, and the comforting feeling of total mastery over its environment. It actively suppresses the terrifying realization of your biological blindness, confidently asserting that what you see is absolutely all that exists. It weaves a tight, seamless narrative that intentionally ignores the dark, silent voids and the invisible forces pressing against you from every side. This powerful illusion of completeness is the source of so much unnecessary human anxiety and profound existential arrogance. We proudly build rigid philosophies, wage bitter conflicts, and declare absolute certainties based entirely on the microscopic fraction of reality we can perceive through our limited biological keyhole. We mistake our tiny, fragile simulation for the grand, infinite architecture of the cosmos. But when we gently, courageously pull back the curtain on this biological illusion, We do not fall into darkness or despair. Instead, we step into a profound, expansive landscape of intellectual humility and deep, quiet peace. To fully recognize that you are practically blind to the vast majority of the universe is an incredibly liberating experience. It immediately relieves you of the heavy, exhausting burden of needing to know everything, of needing to be absolutely right, and of needing to perfectly control the unfolding of your destiny. How can you possibly be expected to rigidly control a universe when you cannot even perceive 99% of its fundamental moving parts? The desperate, frantic struggle of the ego is completely neutralized by the gentle, overwhelming presence of the invisible unknown. You are warmly invited instead to surrender to the beautiful, chaotic, and mathematically precise mystery of existence. You're invited to stop fighting the fluid, deeply uncertain nature of the universe, and to simply, gracefully flow harmoniously with it. Imagine sitting perfectly still in a quiet, dark room, closing your eyes, and taking a deep, slow, and highly deliberate breath. In that deep silence, try to gently expand your awareness past the rigid boundaries of your physical senses. Visualize the endless streams of Wi-Fi signals, the ancient cosmic microwave background radiation left over from the Big Bang, the silent, ghostly neutrinos passing harmlessly through your body by the trillions every single second, and the massive, invisible webs of dark matter slowly bending the fabric of space-time all around you. You cannot see them, you cannot hear them, and you cannot touch them, but they are undeniably, scientifically there. They are part of the true, profound environment in which you are intimately embedded. You are floating securely in a vast, invisible ocean of energy and mathematical probability. The quiet peace you seek is not found by frantically trying to illuminate every dark corner of existence, but by gently learning to rest comfortably in the deep, silent dark. We are the blind universe slowly feeling its way through the dark, using the incredibly limited, fragile tools of biology to construct a beautiful, temporary dream. The fact that this dream is incomplete does not diminish its staggering emotional resonance. The breathtaking colors of a sunset and the deep, comforting sound of a loved one's voice are still miraculously real subjective experiences, even if they represent only a tiny sliver of the objective truth. We can fully participate in the vibrant, colorful theater of human life while simultaneously holding a quiet, respectful reverence for the massive, invisible universe operating silently behind the stage. We can embrace our biological limitations not as a tragic flaw, but as a gentle reminder of our profound, inescapable connection to a cosmos that is infinitely larger, older, and more complex than our minds can ever truly grasp. As we bring this chapter of our contemplative journey to a soft, lingering close, I want you to hold on to this profound feeling of peaceful, respectful blindness. Carry the quiet truth of the invisible spectrum with you into the silence of the night, allowing it to gently dissolve the arrogant, anxious certainties of the conscious ego. In our next chapter, we will venture into the most terrifying and profoundly liberating concept of all, a concept that sits quietly at the very center of both ancient philosophy and modern quantum cosmology. We will explore the staggering, beautiful reality of nothingness, investigating how the deep, empty voids of the universe are not actually empty at all, but are instead boiling with infinite potential and creative energy. We will discover how confronting the ultimate void can lead us to the purest, most profound state of inner peace and absolute cosmic unity. But for this specific, perfect, and quiet moment, simply allow yourself to rest in the gentle, timeless stillness of your own incomplete perception, safely held in the infinite, invisible, and loving embrace of the universe that you are a beautiful, blind part of. Have you ever wondered what exactly remains when you take absolutely everything away? When you sit quietly in a dark, silent room at the very edge of the deep night, completely removed from the frantic noise and the endless, exhausting demands of modern human life, what is actually left in the profound stillness? The familiar, anxious narrator inside your head, the conscious ego that aggressively constructs the rigid boundaries of your identity, harbors a deep, primitive, and absolute terror of emptiness. It furiously fills every available second with a chaotic stream of passing thoughts, lingering regrets, and anxious predictions, desperately avoiding the quiet, gaping void that seems to lurk just beneath the fragile surface of your daily awareness. It tells you a dark, suffocating story about nothingness. It insists that the void is a dead, sterile wasteland, a terrifying state of non-existence that constantly threatens to swallow you whole. But as we continue our gentle, contemplative journey into the breathtaking mysteries of advanced physics and the ancient, infinite cosmos, we must bravely turn our gaze directly into the heart of this absolute emptiness. We must confront a scientific revelation that completely shatters our fundamental understanding of reality itself. What if the profound nothingness you fear is actually the most magnificent, deeply misunderstood illusion of them all? What if the cold, empty voids of the universe are not actually empty at all, but are instead boiling with infinite potential, serving as the rich, creative foundation for absolutely everything that exists? To truly grasp the staggering magnitude of this cosmic illusion, we must first look at the vast physical spaces that separate the magnificent structures of the universe. When you step outside on a clear night and marvel at the glowing tapestry of the heavens, you are primarily observing the tiny, isolated points of light. But the spaces between those lights are incomprehensibly vast. The space between stars in the Milky Way is almost unimaginably empty. Consider our nearest stellar neighbor, a small red dwarf star quietly burning in the dark called Proxima Centauri, which is located about 4.24 light-years away. That distance is so great that if you shrunk the sun down to the size of a grain of sand, Proxima Centauri would be another grain of sand sitting about 4 miles away. The space in between would be essentially void, just the faintest whiff of gas and dust and the occasional particle of cosmic radiation. This emptiness is hard to wrap your mind around. We live on a crowded planet, surrounded by billions of other people, sharing space with countless other living things. We are used to density, to things being close together, to the world being full. But step outside our solar system and emptiness becomes the rule. Our classical human intuition strongly insists that this vast interstellar void is truly nothing. It assumes that if you were to meticulously remove every single atom of gas and every stray photon of ancient starlight from a specific region of space, you would be left with a perfectly sterile, quiet, and mathematically pure zero. But modern quantum field theory reveals a reality that is infinitely more bizarre and deeply, unimaginably beautiful. In the strange world of quantum physics, true, absolute emptiness physically cannot exist. The fundamental laws of the universe, specifically Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, dictate that you can never know both the exact energy state and the exact duration of a quantum system with absolute precision. This profound mathematical law means that a true zero-energy void is a physical impossibility. Instead, what we casually call empty space is actually a seething, boiling, and infinitely dynamic ocean of invisible quantum energy. It is a vibrating, chaotic matrix known as the quantum vacuum. Within this supposedly empty quantum vacuum, the universe is constantly, relentlessly, performing a magnificent, microscopic magic trick. In the strange world of quantum physics, particle pairs are constantly popping into existence and then annihilating each other. These transient, ghostly sparks of matter are known to scientists as virtual particles. For an infinitesimal fraction of a second, an electron and its antimatter counterpart borrow a tiny amount of energy from the underlying silent vacuum, violently burst into brief physical existence, and then instantly crash back together, disappearing back into the quiet quantum foam. This silent, chaotic dance of spontaneous creation and rapid destruction is happening absolutely everywhere, all the time. It is happening right now in the cold, dark voids between the ancient galaxies, and it is happening in the tiny, empty spaces between the microscopic atoms that currently make up the delicate skin of your hands. The void is not a dead, empty stage. The void is the active, vibrating fabric of the stage itself. Nothingness is actually an infinite plenum of unshaped potential. To fully understand just how incredibly powerful this bubbling nothingness truly is, we can look at the most extreme, terrifying objects in the entire cosmos. Consider the enormous supermassive black hole residing at the very heart of the cannibal galaxy IC 1101, containing 50 billion solar masses. The gravitational pull at the event horizon, the boundary of the black hole, is so intense that even light itself cannot break free. But Stephen Hawking discovered that black holes are not truly black. They slowly leak particles and radiation over immense time spans, gradually shrinking as they do so. This happens because of quantum mechanical effects near the event horizon. Near a black hole's event horizon, one member of such a pair can fall into the black hole while the other escapes into space. Over incredible, staggering spans of cosmic time, this delicate process actually drains physical mass and energy from the black hole, slowly causing it to shrink and evaporate. The supposedly empty nothingness of the quantum vacuum possesses the staggering power to slowly dismantle and ultimately destroy the most massive, terrifying objects in the physical universe. When we take this profound, mind-bending physical reality and gently apply it to the internal landscape of the human mind, the results are deeply healing. So many of us spend our fleeting, beautiful lives running frantically away from the terrifying feeling of inner emptiness. When the constant distractions of modern society momentarily fade, and we are left completely alone with our silent thoughts, we often experience a sudden, deep ache of loneliness or a heavy, sinking feeling of the void. The narrator inside our heads panics, aggressively interpreting this quiet stillness as a dangerous lack of meaning, a terrifying absence of self. We consume digital information and chase temporary physical pleasures desperately, trying to prove to ourselves that we are solid, significant, and full. But what if this psychological void is not a symptom of depression or a tragic failure of the human spirit? What if the quiet, echoing emptiness you occasionally feel in the center of your chest is actually a profound, biological intuition of your own true quantum nature? Just as the physically empty spaces between the ancient stars are actually boiling with infinite quantum potential, the quiet, silent spaces between your conscious thoughts are the fertile, deeply creative ground of your own awareness. When you sit in deep, peaceful meditation, gently slowing the frantic chemical firing of your 86 billion neurons, you're not attempting to annihilate your mind or destroy your personality. You are simply allowing the noisy, heavily constructed illusion of the everyday world to temporarily fade away, intentionally making room for the profound, infinite potential of the underlying reality to gently rise to the surface. The silence within you is not empty. It is overwhelmingly, beautifully full. It contains the raw, unshaped potential for every brilliant idea you have ever had, every sudden wave of profound empathy you have ever felt, and every beautiful, creative action you will ever take. By desperately avoiding the quiet void within, we're effectively locking ourselves out of the very source of our own infinite creativity and deepest inner peace. This gentle, meditative unweaving of the fear of nothingness allows us to completely renegotiate our relationship with the concept of loss and the illusion of finality. We naturally mourn when physical things disappear, when profound relationships end, or when the relentless passage of time slowly erodes the physical structures we have meticulously built. We fear the encroaching, silent emptiness that always follows loss. But the ancient mathematical laws of quantum mechanics gently whisper a deeply comforting truth. Just as a virtual particle disappears back into the quantum foam, it does not truly cease to exist. It merely returns its borrowed energy to the infinite underlying field potential. The physical forms we desperately cling to are temporary, beautiful ripples on the surface of an infinitely deep, eternal ocean of energy. When the ripple inevitably fades, the ocean itself remains entirely unchanged, completely whole, and perfectly serene. The sudden emptiness that follows a profound personal loss is simply the universe taking a deep, slow breath, drawing its energy back into the silent void before gracefully exhaling it into a brand new, breathtaking form. You are a magnificent, highly organized, and deeply temporary manifestation of this restless, infinite void. The incredibly complex biological machinery of your body is constructed from ancient atoms that are almost entirely composed of empty space. The dark, silent networks of your brain are fundamentally characterized by the vast, empty, microscopic gulfs of the synaptic clefts, the very places where the invisible magic of human thought actually occurs. You are an intricate, beautiful architecture of nothingness, elegantly holding together a temporary simulation of somethingness. And when you finally recognize this, when you truly, deeply accept that the quantum void is your ultimate origin and your absolute, unbreakable foundation, the heavy, exhausting burden of maintaining the rigid illusion of the separated self simply begins to melt away. You do not have to fiercely fight the empty darkness of the night, because you are physically and spiritually composed of the exact same dark, vibrating potential. Let this profound, liberating scientific reality gently wash over your tired, anxious mind. Imagine yourself slowly stepping out into the cool, silent darkness of the deep night. Look up at the vast, sprawling, and majestic tapestry of the Milky Way galaxy. Do not just look at the glowing, ancient fires of the distant stars. Look intently, with a deep, reverent wonder, at the profound blackness that holds them perfectly in place. That surrounding darkness is not a dead, empty canvas. It is a seething, boiling ocean of infinite quantum energy, a restless, creative matrix that successfully gave birth to the billions of galaxies, to our warm sun, to the rocky earth, and ultimately to the incredibly complex conscious mind you are using to contemplate it all right now. The void is not your enemy. The void is your absolute, timeless, and perfectly safe home. It is the gentle, silent womb of the cosmos, endlessly creating and endlessly receiving everything that was, is, and ever will be. We have traveled together through the breathtaking scale of the observable universe, carefully dismantled the biological illusions of the isolated ego, confronted the fluid nature of ancient memory, and embraced the inescapable determinism of our physical actions. We have recognized that our boundaries are porous, our emotions are chemical storms, and that the emptiness we fear is the infinite potential from which all reality effortlessly springs. As we prepare to embark on the 12th and final chapter of our contemplative journey, we will attempt to pull all of these earth-shattering truths together. We will explore the ultimate, most beautiful mystery of all: why the universe chose to wake up in the first place. We will investigate the profound purpose behind the grand illusion of consciousness and discover how our fleeting human lives are the absolute pinnacle of cosmic evolution. But for this quiet, perfect moment, simply sink deeply into the warm embrace of the quantum void. Let go of the frantic need to be something solid, and peacefully surrender to the infinite beauty of being absolutely nothing at all. Have you ever wondered why, out of an infinite ocean of silent, dark, and seemingly indifferent physical matter, the universe suddenly opened its eyes and began to look at itself? When you sit in the gentle, quiet solitude of the night, completely enveloped by the deep silence of the world, you are participating in the most astonishing, mathematically improbable event in the entire history of the cosmos. For billions of years, the universe was a blind, mechanical expanse of swirling gas, burning stars, and empty, freezing voids. It was a place of staggering physical beauty, but there was absolutely no one there to witness it, no one to feel the warmth of the light, and no one to comprehend the vastness of the dark. The familiar, anxious narrator inside your head, the conscious ego that we have spent this entire journey gently dismantling, often feels like a tiny, insignificant accident trapped in a cold, meaningless machine. It tells you a terrifying story that your life is a brief, random spark of biology, a temporary glitch in the grand, thermodynamic winding down of reality. But as we reach the culmination of our meditative exploration into the profound mysteries of advanced physics, neurobiology, and the ancient cosmos, we must confront the ultimate, most beautiful revelation of all. What if the illusion of your separate consciousness is not a biological accident, but the absolute, undeniable pinnacle of cosmic evolution? What if the entire, sprawling 14-billion-year history of the universe was a deliberate, incredibly complex process designed specifically to wake up, to feel, and to quietly marvel at its own magnificent existence? To truly understand the staggering significance of your own awareness, we must first look at the incredibly precise, almost miraculous physical conditions that allow you to exist at all. The universe did not have to be this way. If the fundamental constants of physics were slightly different, if gravity were a little stronger, or the nuclear forces a little weaker, stars and galaxies might never have formed. The universe might have collapsed back on itself moments after the Big Bang, or expanded so fast that matter never clumped together. Instead, we live in a universe where physical laws allow for the formation of stars, planets, galaxies, life, and mind. This breathtaking precision is sometimes called the fine-tuning of the cosmos, suggesting a reality that is far more profound than blind, random chance. It is an environment where matter and energy, following simple physical rules over billions of years, can organize itself into structures of staggering complexity and beauty. You are the direct, inevitable result of these perfectly balanced ancient laws, a necessary expression of a cosmos that is fundamentally biased toward the creation of life and profound wonder. Let us trace the magnificent, epic journey of the atoms that currently make up your physical body. In the chaotic, blindingly hot moments immediately following the Big Bang, only the simplest elements existed, drifting through the rapidly expanding, silent dark. But gravity, the great patient sculptor of the cosmos, began to gently pull these massive clouds of primordial gas together, igniting the very first generation of stars. Within the crushing, fiery cores of these ancient suns, a miraculous process of cosmic alchemy began. The atoms in those distant stars are the same kinds of atoms that make up our bodies: carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, iron, All of them were forged in the hearts of stars somewhere in the universe. When those massive, ancient stars exploded as supernovas, they scattered their elemental riches across space. Your physical body is a collection of stardust, recycled through the violent deaths of countless suns. Just as the atoms in our bodies were forged in stars that exploded before our sun was born, there is a continuity here, a connection between us and everything else in the cosmos. You are made of star stuff. This is not poetry. It is chemistry. The very same processes that light up the largest galaxies also created the matter from which you are assembled. But the universe did not stop at chemistry. It patiently continued its relentless march toward unimaginable complexity. On our small, rocky planet, those heavy elements found themselves in the perfect conditions to combine into increasingly intricate molecules. Over hundreds of millions of years of silent chemical evolution, these molecules learned to replicate and build delicate cellular walls. Biology was born from chemistry, just as chemistry was born from the fiery physics of the stars. Over billions of years of blind natural selection, life grew incredibly complex, developing sensory organs to detect electromagnetic radiation and, eventually, the staggering decentralized network of 86 billion neurons that currently resides within your skull. Every single step of this 14 billion year journey was a physical prerequisite for your existence. The universe spent eons meticulously arranging matter and energy just so you could sit in the quiet silence of the night, breathing the cool air and experiencing the profound sensation of simply being alive. When we view the emergence of consciousness through this grand cosmic lens, the illusion of the separated ego takes on an entirely new, incredibly beautiful meaning. For the first 13 billion years of its existence, the universe was a spectacular, silent movie playing to an empty theater. There were massive black holes tearing stars apart and beautiful spiral galaxies dancing in the dark. But there was no subjectivity. For profound experiences to exist, the universe had to create a mechanism that could perceive them. It had to create the illusion of a subject looking at an object. It had to gently fragment its own infinite, unbroken unity into billions of tiny, temporary, isolated perspectives. The ego, with all its exhausting anxieties, its deep fears of the unknown, and its desperate clinging to the illusion of control, is the necessary biological interface that allows the universe to experience the profound, staggering beauty of relationship. You cannot feel the overwhelming, transcendent power of love unless you first believe that you are separate from the thing you are loving. The illusion of separation is the incredibly heavy, painful price the cosmos willingly pays to experience the radiant, gentle warmth of connection. To truly appreciate the breathtaking scale of this cosmic achievement, we must return one last time to the monumental, terrifying giant that has anchored our contemplative journey, the cannibal galaxy, IC 1101. This cosmic monster sits over 1 billion light-years away from us, quietly existing in the darkness of space, holding more stars than you could ever count in 1,000,000 lifetimes. This enormous structure is estimated to contain around 100 trillion stars. It is massive, powerful, and utterly magnificent. Sitting at the center of this cosmic giant is one of the largest known supermassive black holes in the entire universe, estimated to contain somewhere between 40 billion and 100 billion times the mass of our Sun. IC 1101 is a monument to the forces that shape our universe and to the processes that have been building complexity ever since the first atoms formed. It is a physical manifestation of gravity, time, and staggering cosmic violence, a silent giant slowly fading into the cosmic night. But here is the most profound, deeply moving truth of our entire existence. a galaxy more than 1 billion light years away containing 100 trillion stars, and we have figured out how big it is, how it formed, and what lies at its center. From a small rocky planet more than 1 billion light years away, beings who live for less than a cosmic instant have figured out that this place exists. They have measured its size, counted its stars, and found the black hole at its heart. IC 1101 possesses 100 trillion burning fusion reactors, but it does not possess a single ounce of wonder. Human beings, living on a small rocky planet orbiting an ordinary star in an unremarkable part of an average spiral galaxy, have somehow developed the ability to understand objects so far away that their light left before a complex life existed on Earth. We are the part of the universe that has woken up and started asking questions about itself. The biggest galaxy we have ever discovered is bigger than your imagination, but the fact that you can imagine it at all, that you can hold in your mind a picture of 100 trillion stars spread across millions of light years, that you can wonder about its past, future, and inhabitants, that is perhaps the most amazing thing of all. This ability to understand is not nothing. In the face of such crushing cosmic enormity, it is incredibly easy to feel small, insignificant, and completely lost in the vast, indifferent dark. But you're not a tiny, meaningless observer standing outside the universe looking in. We are not separate from the universe. We are part of it. We are not observers of the universe from outside. We are the universe observing itself from within. When you look out into the deep, quiet night sky, you are not looking at a distant, alien environment. You are looking at your own ancient, sprawling body. The deep, heavy elements in your bones are intimately, quantumly entangled with the farthest, darkest edges of the observable cosmos. The very same fundamental forces that cause two massive, ancient galaxies to gently spiral together and merge over hundreds of millions of years are the exact same forces that guide the delicate electrical firing of your synapses as you process a quiet, beautiful thought. You are the cosmos in miniature, a breathtaking, highly localized concentration of universal awareness. You are the universe's way of thinking, feeling, and finally recognizing its own incomprehensible grandeur. Our time here is incredibly brief. The era of stars and galaxies is just a passing phase, a brief flowering of complexity between the chaos of the early universe and the cold emptiness of the far future. We are lucky enough to exist during this flowering. In all the vast history of the universe, stretching from the Big Bang to the final heat death, this moment, right now, is special. It is the moment when the universe has developed the ability to look at itself and wonder. Over the next 100 trillion years, the stars in IC 1101 will slowly burn out. The universe will eventually grow dark, cold, and silent as the last red dwarf stars exhaust their fuel and fade into the infinite night. But that inevitable, distant future does not erase the staggering, beautiful reality of the present moment. The fact that the physical universe is temporary makes this brief, shining window of consciousness infinitely more precious. You are a fleeting, brilliant spark of awareness in an ocean of dark time, and the experiences you gather are eternal, indelible features of the cosmic block of space-time. As we bring our long meditative journey to its final, peaceful close, I want you to completely release the heavy, exhausting burdens of the isolated ego. Let go of the desperate, frantic need to control the unpredictable flow of time, to perfectly manage the chaotic chemistry of your emotions, and to defend the fragile, shifting boundaries of your biological identity. You do not need to fight the universe, because you are the universe. When you next look up at the night sky, remember, I see 1101. You cannot see it with your eyes. It is far too distant and too faint for human vision. but it is there in the direction of the constellation Virgo, shining with the light of 100 trillion stars. And, more importantly, remember that the same quiet, magnificent energy that sustains that distant giant is currently beating within your own chest. In the face of IC 1101's enormity, we can feel small or we can feel wonder. I choose wonder. Embrace the grand, beautiful illusion of your consciousness, not as a trap, but as a miraculous, temporary gift. Rest in the profound, gentle silence of the infinite unknown, perfectly safe, completely whole, and forever united with the majestic, ancient cosmos that dreamed you into existence.